This conference will now be recorded.
Your neighbors.
I know, I'm over here by my.
Just how we love. But that's not gonna be even see. Double click on us, you know. I'm not favorite. Not really. It's like lower too. Everyone was talking. That's what it's gonna be.
Got a huge fall.
What?
That side of it, they're about a huge hard. Because we're talking one.
That's what Mike said. Yeah.
On?
Make sure.
What? Yeah.
Please. Hopefully this will be the last meeting. Okay. We will open up this regular session of the Common Council of the City of Port Orford, Thursday, May 18th, 2023, right on time at 5:30. Please join me for the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
New person, the cadence changes. Touch me. All right. Yeah, exactly. Any additions to the agenda? There are some tweaks. And the first one being, let's see, under citizen considerations, it didn't get moved up to presentations, but Guy Vernon wanted to come touch base with us about the community building. And we are going to try and get a hold of Connie Hunter for her presentation.
I'm here.
If Connie is attending by computer.
Yeah, she would show up.
I'm on the phone line.
She's on the-
Excellent. Perfect.
I was gonna ask if
Thank
you guys at the end of that matter we had discussed about, I know citizens had wanted that dog conversation. Do you want to wait till another time, the dog training thing? Do you want to wait till next time and see if we can get things further lined up?
Let me write that down, because we can do a short report on the pathway moving
Yes,
forward.
that would
It's
be
kind of the encompassing, so maybe we'll throw that under the administration.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
If you could remind me, because I forget things about every 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we are going to move Guy up. We have Connie Hunter on the line to, on behalf of veterans and brain injuries. So go right ahead, Ms. Hunter.
Thank
Sorry,
you so
I'm still
much.
in additions to the agenda. Hold on one second.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping to.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, Connie? Can you?
Yes.
We're still doing additions to the agenda. If you could just wait.
Okay, my apologies.
No mind, we're still working it out. But Mr. Mayor, I was hoping somewhere in the agenda, we could add you swearing me in as the city administrator, planning director, finance director. And then I was hoping to, it's my first meeting here, introduce myself to the citizens and the council. And then at the end of the meeting, in my first week, I'd like to give a small, remember how Gary Milliman was doing the weekly reports? I'd like to give you all a small weekly report at the end. And then also I'd be seeking direction from the council on a few questions that I have just coming into the thing. So that could be at the end. It says departmental, oh, never mind, I'm already there on fees.
Yeah.
Never mind. So
Why don't
I'll
we
just
get
do
this
everything.
oath of office out of the way right now?
Okay.
Before we conduct any more business.
Very good. Thanks, Your Honor.
All right. Please repeat after me. State of Oregon, County of Curry, City of Port Orford. I, John R. Huddle,
I, John R. Huddle,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the state,
Go ahead. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and law of the United States
and the state of Oregon, and the charter, bylaws, ordinances, resolutions, and proclamations of the city of Port Orford,
and the state of Oregon and charter, bylaws, ordinances, resolutions, and proclamations of the city of Port Orford,
and perform duties of city administrator, planning director, and finance director, and other office duties as assigned for the city of Port Orford,
and perform the duties of city administrator, planning director, finance director, and other duties as assigned for the city of Port Orford,
in honesty and justice to the best of my ability,
in honesty and justice to the best of my ability,
and that, as far as possible,
and that, as far as possible,
I will protect said offices in this city from any
I will protect said offices in this city from any
illegal, unethical, or dishonest practices, so help me God.
illegal, unethical, or dishonest practices, so help me God.
This I promise under penalties of perjury.
This I promise under penalty of perjury. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. So we've covered that addition under the administration report.
Well, yeah.
We have your additions. Anything else? Okay, and like I said, we moved Guy up for after Connie, so I think we are now ready for you, Miss Hunter.
Thank you so much. Uh, Mayor Kopp, city councilors, and city administrator Huddle. I'm Connie Hunter, and I'm with the Curry County Suicide Awareness Prevention Council. I direct the Veterans Task Group. I've been blessed to work with about 20 members on the task group, and tomorrow we're hosting at Curry campus from 11 to 2 in the Krieger Community Room. We'll be hosting the Veterans Brain Injury Workshop in Town Hall with Mr. David Crackey, who's State of Oregon's brain injury advocate and the State of Oregon's brain injury advocate for veterans and service members. In addition to helping educate people about brain injuries, there's an opportunity for brain injury screening. And we're going to roll out a whole bunch of resources and good information to tell people they have a brain injury. The next thing is, now what? We're going to try and answer the now what. Our Curry County Board of Commissioners asked me to put together a hyperbaric oxygen therapy program for veterans and pledged $65,000 of American Rescue Plan funding toward that effort. In the work that we're doing tomorrow, we're going to roll out why we think people should be interested in helping us develop that amazing program. In fact, we're going to have a veteran who has received hyperbaric oxygen therapy. His name is Jeff Doran, and he served as a Navy corpsman, which is roughly the equivalent of an Army combat medic. But when he retired after 24 years, he had basically the civilian equivalent of a physician's assistant title. So his medical background and the disability that he suffered, he's going to share with us about that and about the improvements in his life after receiving hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Thank you for allowing me this time today. And if you have served in the U.S. military, please get screened for a brain injury or multiple brain injuries. Even in military training, brain injuries can occur. Thank you for your encouragement, love, and support of our Curry County veterans. In addition, if you need additional information, my phone number is 602-541-5903. And counselors and mayor and others, you have my email on the paperwork that's been shared with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And now we will have Guy come up. He wanted to touch base with us on the community building. We had some irons in the fire on that. Oh, no. Let me do a quick roll call really quick. Let the record reflect that Counselor Tidy, Counselor Burns, Counselor Pogwitz, Counselor Velisis, and Counselor Webb are present. Counselor Rask is excused. Council Kudlak is here, as well as our pro-interim city administrator, John Huddle, and myself, Pat Cox, the mayor. So thank you for catching me on that, Brett. I appreciate it. Yeah.
My name is Guy Vernon. I'm here on behalf of Rotary Port Orford. There's a couple questions, a couple things I'd like to ask. One is my understanding, I don't know all the historical background because I'm fairly new here, but it's my understanding that the council has previously voted on some very extensive renovations of both the community building and the other building that's next to it. And we've been in conversation with the city. We understand that there's been some things that happened, COVID, the big grant and all that. And our question is this a project that the city council would like, or is still behind and would like to move forward for? That's question number one. So.
Are you talking about applying for the grant that we?
The grant, yes, that's the next step would be,
Yeah. Please go.
I am, great, I'm talking about the grant application. And we have worked with an architect. We have not by any chance working drawings, but some conceptual drawings drawn. The club has raised some money. My understanding, some of it's been returned, but there's a possibility we have seed money for this. And anyway, it just kind of seemed that, I'm not sure exactly what the problem was, but it kind of, with everything that's been going on, just we're wondering if you're still interested, if there's anything we can partner with to help, how we would get this unstuck and kind of move forward.
May I answer this, because I've been trying to do some work on this? Or do you not want to answer at this time? How do you guys want?
We'll let this is kind of off the cuff anyway, so go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I've been trying to pick up this ball, Guy, and we had, as you know, we had other projects that we had to get out of the pipeline first. We have had a person at the CCD, the Economic Development, that was wanting to work with us and move this. We've got Rotary volunteers who really want to work on it. We're just getting through those grants right now. The person we were hoping might help us is moved on to a different job. Just yesterday, I reached out to her successor to ask if they have capacity to help. They're interested, but they need to look at their schedule. We've had so much transition right now, and we're working on our budget, and Mr. Huddle is getting up to speed. So I think it would be appropriate for us to have a conversation about our capacity to do it. Maybe not right now, but like next month if we can get that information. So I heard everybody previously was really in support of this and want to keep it going. It's just that we have to get our ducks in a row.
Yeah, no, and I think that we can, now that we, touching bases again, we can get the proposal that we had the first time with the conceptual designs that was here a couple of years ago, just so and this is to get everything on the table for the community as much as reiterating, what we've done in the past. But so we'll go through those motions again. We'll start shaking the trees because there was some things available for that at one time. So
Yeah.
I think we can tell you that we want to circle back. Ann wants it on the agenda. I do. A couple other councilors are shaking their heads. So like she says, we're very busy, but it's, you planted the seed again. So we'll try to get that on the next agenda just to get you the solid answer, but the motivation is there to connect these dots.
Okay, good.
I've been talking to John Johnston to try to keep him in the loop to improve communication so that we have that. And there's just lots of irons in the fire, of course, right now. So hopefully, I believe one of the first steps to moving forward with the community block grant, which is what the aspiration was to have some public meetings. because since the time, there may be more ideas or different things people want to bring up. So that will be, I think that's all stuff that we can hopefully discuss at the next meeting. Once we hear from John.
Oh, and yeah, no, that's why it wasn't consideration at the end, but I bumped it.
No, I think it's.
And it was to establish this, so let's come back with a proposal, get everybody on.
What I'm asking for is just some background.
Exactly.
So if I could, Guy, just so you know, a couple of people have already said what we're working on right now. So what we've got that we have to deal with right now is, and I'm not trying to make excuses because I wholeheartedly support the community building. We can't lose that as a community, and I can't stress that enough. That is one of the most important anchors of our city. So right now, what we have to do, get our audit done. We have a timeline on our budget, of course. We have a police levy that we have to get prepared to get it passed, and we have to do union contract negotiations. So please, if we're busy for the next month or two, be patient with it. But you have everyone's support here at the table, I believe.
Yeah, the goal and objective to me is fabulous.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. And that's all we're doing, is looking for an answer. But I'm here to say, if you need any help with the application, our goal is to see that. The second branch of this is currently Rotary is, I think, the only tenant for that building. We're operating without a rental agreement. I think that's probably in the stack of things that need to be done. And one of and this is, I'm asking a question. We feel that with the right management agreement, and this has to, it's just a question, we can bring a formal proposal that building could be managed better utilized, it is an event center. It hasn't been really managed properly. And so if you would like Rotary to perform those management functions, and this is real rough, we could, if that's something that you would entertain, we would come back to you with a proposal that this is the things that we want to do and outline exactly what it is. And we've had some discussion about what we would do, but, and this is not binding by any means. It's just like if you say, yeah, this is something we're interested in, then we would come back to you with like, okay, here's what we need. Some of our vision is like, some signage outside that says this building is available for rent, perhaps, definitely a website, which has a calendar and fee schedule and when it's available, what type of events are available, insurance requirements, those kind of things. And with just some conversations with Mayor Cox, he said that people have come to him and said, we're interested in this. And just our management agreement that we did have was incomplete at best. This was just really structurally wasn't sound, I don't believe, which I think put everybody, the city, Rotary, in kind of a bad position because it could be rented to different places that without much scrutiny, which could get both the city and Rotary. So if that's something that you're interested in, I can go back, talk to the board, we can come back to you with a proposal. Anybody have any questions on that?
Are you saying you're hoping to screen the applicants for usage or like?
Well, yes.
What's acceptable to one person may not be acceptable to another, and I'm wondering who, would it be the leadership of Rotary that would be making that decision, or how would that work?
Well, I don't know if screening is, I suppose it would be a form of screening, what's, it would more be is that they're, well, obviously, it's the legal thing that you can do, that you're doing in there, that they have insurance for what they're trying to do. One of the things that came up, that nobody really had the answer to, Council Webb, was, there was a skate club, which, was a really good success, but the kind of the question was, if somebody gets hurt, who's responsible for that? Is it the management who's Rotary, or is it the city? And I at this point, I don't think that question's been answered of how we could do that. One of the things that was proposed was skate club, get an LLC, take out an insurance policy that they could, if someone got hurt, that insurance policy would cover that. But, and say if they, if you had a wedding, maybe you need to have a small event policy that holds the city harmless and Rotary harmless.
We didn't have any of that. Yeah. I rented the thing before, and it was just like a one-sheeter, kind of a boilerplate type thing.
But I mean, that's something we're working on as a council anyway, so that's gonna get.
It is.
Before we get done with this conversation, that is going to be answered.
Right, so that's why it's kind of interesting what they were.
I think we're already working on things like trying to get a calendar on the website, right? I mean, these are things that have been in progress. Getting a better agreement, I believe, was the work has been started on that, figuring out the short-term insurance. I think we've been having conversations in the background that now Mr. Huddle, or I'm sorry, John, we're gonna ask you to help us pull together.
If I could,
Yeah.
and for the council. So when we get to the department reports and administration, I was just going to go over, one of the things that was most interesting to me is what is my job description. Part of my job description is to oversee and coordinate the operations of all the city properties. And so to me, it makes the most sense. And I know Guy and, Mike and Doc and Larry from the Rotary. And so it makes most sense to me that I work with the city. And people said, where would your allegiances be? And you just saw me take an oath. I haven't taken any oath to the Rotary. So my allegiances would be for the city did I take an oath to the Rotary? What did we do when we get, okay, good. So anyway, I took an oath to the city. So my allegiance would be to the city, obviously. But when two parties agree, and you would have to agree ultimately if it were a contract, but we may or may not need any further thing. But Guy, what I would like to do is sit down with you and say, what does the Rotary offer benefits to the city out of this agreement? And then what can the city do? But I think all the things you talked about, the calendar, the insurance, we could also require of all the users. But are you thinking that we would have more revenue, or that there would just be more of a, what's it called? Where it's like a nucleus of activity and growth, and some kind of a anchor to some economic development? I mean, what does you or the Rotary see as the ultimate goal of this building, other than getting it better improved and more presentable and safe and well lighted and ventilated and all those things?
Well, it's kind of a two-pronged thing. It was an offer of services that we weren't sure, and we like to look at it, and it's kind of like the unknown rental, right? There's not even a sign on it. There's no website. There's no one to contact. And unless, you're intimately, what would the word be? Well, unless you knew about that building, I'm fishing for the right word, sorry. There would be no way that, people that are in Port Orford, they've been here for a long time, but say you're somebody outside. And one of the things, this is one of the things we kind of kicked around. If we got a commercial kitchen license, there's a big need for small bakeries, food carts, people that aren't allowed to bake food and sell that don't have commercial, they have to have a commercial kitchen. And so there is actually a website that you can go on, you can put in Curry County, and there's 0 in Curry County for you to rent. And so that would be an idea. So, you know, basically, we would be here, Rotary is, you know, our function is to make this community better. And so we're saying we have able-bodied people that are willing to do this if the city is interested in partnering with us. And that's kind of my question. This is really rough. If there is an interest in us managing that, we will put together a more in-depth proposal and start the conversation. It doesn't mean it has to go anywhere, but this is just kind of the first step in the journey. If you say, look, we're going to handle this, and you're going to be a tenant, and we don't need any help, then we won't go to the trouble of putting together a proposal, having our ideas, or volunteering. So this is like the, you know, first step in a journey, and that's all I'm asking.
Well, and so for the council, it makes sense that me as the city administrator work directly with the Rotary and hash out the details and bring something back to the council when it's ready. But what I've heard is that the council is definitely interested in your first question, that we still want to get the improvements as have been discussed for longstanding. And then the second one, as far as the agreement, I think you and me and the Rotary can work on an agreement and get the details hashed out. But it's hard for them to agree to an agreement without knowing all the particulars. I mean, this whole idea of the commercial kitchen, kind of new information to me. I don't know about the rest of the council, so we just need to know the details.
Okay, well, that's, it's just, like I said, there. Do you have a question? No. Okay. No, that was, I mean, this is very preliminary. It's like, should we be working on this, or is this just you know, we got this covered. We don't need your help.
It's hard for us to make any sort of decision on the fly like this. Like, unless we have a proposal, we can't really talk about the proposal. And yes, we're interested, but we can't commit to anything because it's all preemptive. You know?
And
So-
I'd also like to
Right.
give John a chance to get a grip on understanding the nature of the city, where we're at with the agreements that we've been working on and the web. There's all sorts of things that are in progress. So I think it would be better if we could
Well,
have
and
you learn that.
we know we need a rental agreement, and that's probably a nice segue into these other conversations, and that's something we need to work on anyway. So I wasn't saying to deter anything other than the fact it's hard to make decisions when you don't have anything. in
Well,
front.
I completely understand that.
So when I get to my administrative report, I'm going to be asking for council direction on some items, but I'd be happy to add, work with Rotary on, you know, a management agreement to the list and get it prioritized. And I think I would have some time to work with the Rotary on this item, and we can do that later. But Guy and Rotary, I think the council knows what you're talking about. I'm not hearing a lot of opposition to anything. Is that correct?
No, last meeting we were talking, we were sort of afraid that Rotary had lost interest.
Right, no, it's.
And we were like, oh, man, they lost interest, so this is good. This is fine. I think it's-
Right, and I'm part of the Rotary Board, and there's some people that may have lost interest. There's also some people that think we're here for the good of Port Orford. If we can help use this asset and, you know, for the benefit of the community, that's what it is. So what I'll try to do is I have to go to the board. We'll come up with a proposal and we'll submit that to John. Is that okay? Well, thank you. That's.
And then do we have an existing policy on the building?
What do you mean by policy?
Just-
Use policy?
Yeah, well, just whatever we have, we should probably share it with them, so they have an idea of what status quo is, or, you know, whatever that's worth, I don't know, but.
We were working on an agreement with Rotary like this spring, earlier, like back in March. I remember we had it in our minutes. There were drafts of that going on, and
So there's an old agreement that dates back probably about, I don't know, 8 years or so. That was, so you could. And as far as the commercial kitchen, it was a certified kitchen up until COVID, and then I think nobody was using it. So I think, if I remember correctly, our prior city administrator, 2 city administrators ago, opted not to pay whatever it was to the county because, of course, nobody was allowed to use it or nobody was using it. But it was a certified kitchen.
Okay, well, these are all things we can look into.
Sure.
And, so, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the consent calendar. It's the minutes from 4/20, 5/4, temporary LLCC license for Seabold Books, and one permit one for Portside Cafe and Market. Is there anything we need to pull out of the consent calendar?
I have a change on the April 20th minutes under 6I. It says under citizens' concerns that Chris Hawthorne motion to approve additional hours for Daniel Kern, incorrectly lists Councilor Burns as voting in favor. He voted in opposition. Voted in favor.
Okay.
And then I saw somewhere in the minutes as well, I don't recall which one, I should have highlighted it, I'm sorry, that it said the vote was 4-1, but yet there was 5 counselors that voted yes, so I have to look for that real quick.
I would have a minor change in that same one of April 20th, which is at the very end where it says adjourn. It says the mayor adjourned the meeting at 9 and moved into executive session, but really what happened is the mayor adjourned and how that moved into executive session. That happened after the executive session, so
Right.
the minor fix. I don't know if those are those kinds of little details or things we should be.
For sure, yeah. So, and that's when we moved into executive session.
Yes.
And then,
We came out and then you adjourned.
I can't find it.
There was a couple of 4-1s.
Do you see the 4-1s and then do you see 5 votes below it?
There was a couple of 4-1s. I was a 1 on one. Wait. So,
So don't look under the names, look where it says it was 4-1, and then look under the names, it says yes. But I can't,
I thought you no vote, right? You're good.
maybe it was corrected on this copy, because I was looking at another copy earlier today. So usually, well, it says motion carries 5-1. Motion carries 6-0. 5-1. It may have been my other copy that had it on it, that's corrected. Because I don't see it.
it was a 5-1 on the executive session, though?
no.
No. It was a 4-1 on the particular item. I think we had one counselor absent. But I honestly don't see it. So it was on my other agenda. I believe it was on the electronic agenda, as a matter of fact, that I was reading earlier today again.
Okay,
So maybe that was a
let's
different
pump the
one.
brakes for a second. We're gonna pull the minutes off the consent calendar. We have the OLCC licenses, so the consent calendar, the minutes are pulled off. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve those liquor licenses before we discuss these? Because we need to break
Yeah,
that.
so moved.
So there's a motion on the table. Tim seconded. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Counselor Velisis?
Yes,
Counselor Taggy?
Yes.
Counselor Burns?
Yes.
Counselor Webb?
Webb, yes.
Counselor Pogwitz?
Tim, yes.
Okay, so we got those out of the way. We are going to concentrate on the minutes of 4/20/23 first. What changes do we have on that?
I think the ones that we have already stated are both related to 420. Do you want us to restate them at this point?
So, well, yeah, just for the record and the clarity of it, we kind of got ambiguous there. So if everything's good with the 420 minutes, that is the one, okay.
6I.
6I.
So I voted in favor of adding the hours for Daniel Kern. And where it states that I did nothing.
Oh, okay. So we have that correction on 6I. Councilor Burns voted yes and it reflects no. And that's it for the April 20th.
No, on page 13, at the very end of the adjournment, it should just say the meeting ended at 9. That Mayor Cox adjourned the meeting at 9, period, and then remove the rest of it.
And under, on page 9, under D, it says Councilor Pogwitz indicated that he thinks this is getting something positive for Port Orford. What I actually said was that having a secondary outfall was considered very important for our city. So I would like that to be reflected.
Understood. Okay. So if that concludes the corrections for Thursday, April 20th, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for Thursday, April 20th with the corrections. So move.
Second?
Any more discussion on that? Okay, Councilor Burns,
Yes,
Councilor Webb,
Webb, yes.
Councilor Pogwitz,
Tim, yes.
Councilor Taggy. Yes. Councilor Velez.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, Thursday, May 4th, 2023 minutes. What do we got? I didn't see.
I see that Tim's name is missed up. I don't know if you.
My name is misspelled.
Your second name, right? Your
Yeah.
last name? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
But I have seen my name misspelled
Oh,
since
man.
I was a young man, so I tend to overlook it. But if, Joseph, if you would like, I don't know if you do the corrections, would you like the correct spelling? Pogwizd and remove the T. Thank you.
When did you change it? Any other corrections on the Thursday, May 4th? Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of Thursday, May 4th, 2023 with corrections.
So moved.
Second. All right, any discussion? Councilor Webb,
Webb, yes.
Councilor Taggy,
Yes.
Councilor Velez,
Yes.
Councilor Pogwitz,
Tim, yes.
and Councilor Burns.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to move into number 5, citizen concerns. This is the portion where we only speak on old and new business items that are on the agenda. Anyone online that has citizen concerns that they would like to share?
Pamela Burns, 34763, Port Orford, Oregon. I would like to bring up a request to the counselor for approving or considering approval of use of Buffington Park as a place for holding professional dog training classes. I know that the city has received a letter from Jan Gordon, who is a professional dog trainer. And so I'm speaking on her behalf and the community that have shared with me that they have interest in this. I know that there's been some discussion as to whether or not the community building might be suited for this. I think though in the nice weather timeframe, the Buffington Park might be a good way to introduce this and see if the relationship could be a good one for our community. So please consider doing this and thank you for your time.
Mayor, Council.
Right, I think at city staff, at city offices, you can come in and they can request a permit to use city property and outline the uses, and we review it and approve it with conditions, et cetera. So as far as I know, that's.
Yeah, no, and the park was the game changer.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
Sure.
in the park.
Yep.
Yeah, the park is.
Yeah.
I have a question for Shayla. Do we have recreational immunity from this if we don't charge for this to
She
happen?
carries her own insurance.
Okay.
And that was part of her proposal originally, was she had her own insurance programs and everything else too. So it looks like it would be, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
And now, I probably should have done this before. Is there any other citizen concerns? Because I should have let you introduce yourself.
No, that's
before.
okay. No, I will, no, I can do.
Oh, you do it there? Okay, perfect. All right, hearing no other citizen concerns, we're gonna move on to departmental reports. John, are you online yet? Okay, he had a couple things he wanted to add, but we'll wait until we get to that portion of the meeting. Administration.
Did it. Wait. Is it John Johnson or?
No.
Or John Isidore?
Hi, John.
John Johnston, I think we were looking for John Isidore, the Public Works Director.
We were looking for the other John. We were looking for the head of public works. But thanks for stepping up for it.
I'm not sure what you are volunteering me for, but thanks.
You're the new head of public works, John.
Trust me, you don't
Yeah.
want that job.
Yeah, I don't think so. I decline. Thanks anyway.
Okay, so we'll wait for John. We'll move on to the administration report.
Thank-
That's also a John.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor and council and everybody else. So my name is John Huddle. I'm the new city administrator. My background is that I am a retired lawyer, and my prior jobs were a dozen or more years as the lawyer at the city of Medford. And I learned many, many facets of municipal actions and processes. And then for the last 5 years before being retired, I was county counsel here in Curry County. It may sound like I'm kind of a newcomer to Curry County and the area, but I've owned property up sixes for close to 20 years now. And my wife and I were married on that property. And back then it was Pitches and Paradise and Port and Starboard. And now things are different. But my wife passed, her ashes are up there. So Curry County, Port Orford, very special to me. I'd like to, so I will put everything I got into this job. In the meantime, I just want to give the council a summary of what's been going on in my first week here. This is my verbal version of Gary Milliman's weekly report, and on weeks that we don't have city council meetings, I'll give you a written. So the budget, as the council may or may not know, we have, so when I said I had familiarity with city municipal operations, the other municipalities and governments I worked at had real dedicated accountants and finance departments. Here, I will be the finance director, but I have retained to assist with our budget, our former finance director, a fellow named Dave Johnson. And he is going to be a great help. And so he will be looking at our budget. This will accomplish another item in that he will be looking at our finance statements to help us with the audit and, maybe give us direction if we find any other things we need to follow up there with. The next thing is, I know council's aware that our servers are nearly, on their last legs. And I did talk to our technology services provider. I think it's, anyway, up in Coos Bay, and Janet is going to be coming down next week with our servers and fixing those. So we will have, instead of one server, we'll have two, and then she's going to split those two into 4, and we will have a separate server for law enforcement, a separate server for admin, another separate server for archives, and then we'll have another server to grow into. So very excited about that. Also, I heard somebody mention that this might be the last time we have this audio-visual setup for city council chambers. Joseph and I have been working with Eric, who's doing business as Media Nook. And Joseph and I looked at the items to purchase, and Joseph pointed out that there was a desk on there that we already had one of. And that got Joseph and Eric into a conversation. And through that conversation, they were able to reduce the supplies from 11,000 down to 9,500 roughly. So well done. And then another thing I'm supposed to do as a city administrator is the effective use of city resources. So as you recall, we have a planner on contract, a woman named Crystal Shoji, and I had a conversation with her, and Joseph also does a lot of our planning work here, and I have vast experience in planning. So between Crystal, Joseph, and myself, Crystal was pleased to have me be the planning director, and then she would be our senior planner. So everything worked out there. And then lastly, we were contemplating on today's agenda a contract to hire a project manager for the water facility, and I was able to talk to her, and we will recommend a continuation of that. So that's what I've been doing the past few days. And then I also have some, at the end of today's meeting, well, could I ask for direction now on my direction item? Good, all right, let's do it. So I'm seeking direction, and Gary Miller and I last week met with the auditors, and the auditors have two options for us, a regular audit and a premium audit. And Gary had reviewed our finances, and he and I thought the regular audit was fine. And so Ben, our auditor, said, yes, that would probably be okay. And we can go back to the premium if we want. I think that makes sense. So what I'm like consensus from the city council is to just tell the auditor to let's proceed with the regular, and then that will help David Johnson in the budget preparation. And then if through that process we decide we need a more premium audit, we will do that. The next thing is this is something, so I'm asked to sign some checks and whatnot, and I'm kind of was wondering what happens. And most of the council here is familiar with the 2-signature requirement on our checks, but we also have direct deposit. And the authorization there is also a 2-person authorization, but it's 2 staff members in the front office. And I thought we should have the electronic process be similar to the paper process, where it's a staff member and, either a council member or myself, but to just have 2 staff level people authorizing electronic things, I thought we should just try to make the processes. So it's just, I'm trying to look at city processes and make them align. So I'd like council consensus that I move forward on that basis. The next thing is, and we talked about it a little bit, the general authority over ordinance and permits and enforcement. So some of our city ordinances, I've been looking at those, and a lot of them have specific authorizations of the city administrator to close the parks for public health and safety, to hear appeals on water bills, to hear appeals on marijuana taxes, to make initial determinations on transient lodging tax with appeal to the city council. The city administrator job description says that I'm responsible for seeing that all the city ordinances are enforced. And so and that I have general supervision over all city property and equipment. So what I prefer among us is and where this came up too, the sign permit. We ask people for sign permits, and someone asked me who approves a sign permit, and it says the city will approve a sign permit. And what I would like to do is in the code, it has various language on who does what. What I would prefer is kind of an understanding going forward based on my job description that unless it says the city council or the police chief or somebody else, that wherever it says the city, that would be the city administrator. And if I run into problems with that, I would bring it to the board. But I would just like to standardize just the decision making. And again, on some of these lower level things, and I think that would be appropriate. The next thing, and if that's a consensus, I hear some head nodding. I don't think we need a vote, but until I hear further, that's how we'll do it. The next thing is the budget meeting schedule. I sent out an email proposing a budget meeting for I think, the 25th, but and then we couldn't do that because I didn't get the notice in time. We wouldn't have made the newspaper notice deadline. So then it was, let's do it the 1st of June. And I was thinking Thursdays I associate with city council meetings, but I was told that that's actually, I think, a parks meeting. And so we definitely need the first budget meeting with the budget committee and the city council to be that first week in June, or the last week of May, first week in June. It's kind of a blend. But I prefer not to have it on Tuesday because that's the first day after a holiday, and those are always just really not optimal. So I would prefer we have it that Wednesday, and I think that is the first Wednesday, May 31st. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but that's what I would like to notice it for, and that would be a 5 o'clock in the evening. That would be the city council and the budget committee members, which actually comprise our budget committee. And if that's okay, that's the notice I'll work on, and we'll get that going.
The Wednesday, May 31st?
That's what we're used to 5:30 here, and I think I like to keep things, well, I like to keep things as usual as possible. So if people are used to us meeting at 5:30, I'd like to do it at 5:30. And that would give people, if they go home, have some dinner, they can come back in. So 5:30, okay with everyone? Okay, good. So thank you for all of that. And I got one last thing, and I wanted to talk about I have one last thing, and actually two last things. One would be it involves a community building, and it came up in the discussion, but it's basically the skating at the community building. And when I heard about this, when I was at the Rotary, it really, I was shaking my head. I didn't quite understand it. Roller skating, being the end of the world somehow. So I talked to our, so we have on record, we have a insurance agent of record, and she's at Jewel Mason Insurance in, I think, Myrtle Point or maybe Coos. And what actually happened is I called the county's agent of record, a woman named Wendy Abel at Abel Insurance, and she knew she wasn't our agent of record, and she knew it was this woman at Jewel Mason. And so she forwarded my voicemail, and I got a call. And it was the first she had heard of the roller skating. And she had actually just come down to look at the city facilities, but she didn't look at the community building. But she also told me, and I agreed, that the city has insurance through what's called CIS. And most of you understand how insurance contracts work. This is covered, and then you have this list of exclusions. Well, there is no roller skating exclusion in our insurance policy. However, the insurance company who did come down to look at it was CIS, which is our insurer. We have an insurance company, we have an insurance agent of record, different, but regardless, there was a list of 6 items that needed to be addressed. And so I looked at those 6 items, and here's what they are. And there are metal green beams that support the foundation. They have sharp edges, and it says they would have to be covered with something that is padded. And so I believe there are padding materials that we can find that are appropriate to put on there. Then it also says they could puncture someone, or laces could, get stuck in there. So again, one, padding on some sharp edges and rough corners, pretty common sense. Another one is it says the stage would have to be blocked off as to not to allow someone to crash into it. We've all seen high school gyms where they have padding on the wall, but this recommendation says use a 5 to 10 foot space with some material such as a caution tape. Very doable. The next one is there's an exposed electrical outlet that should be re-secured in the wall. Again, seems like pretty easy. It says there's a concrete floor that's broken or very rough. Again, these are kind of flexible words, eye of the beholder perhaps, but it says it's concerned and there's hazards in the concrete. I've heard people have looked at it, I haven't, but I know that there are patch materials you can put on concrete, so we can do that. And then it says the floor drains in the bathroom need to be secured. I think all of these are extremely doable for the return that we would get on them. Lastly, we would, what I'm considering, it is a city facility, and I think it should be essentially not the private group who has to come up with insurance, but we just say it's like opening a park. It's sort of not a park, it's kind of like a gym, but regardless, that it be a city program where the city opens it up, and we would then require a participation agreement and a waiver. And then the last thing they said is they would like a full-time city staff member to be there. I've heard that the activity is maybe once or twice a week. Personally, I would do it in addition, not in substitution. It wouldn't replace anything else I would do, but I'd be happy for a couple hours, a couple times a week to put on a referee jersey and have a whistle and go down and take care of the roller skating. I've been background checked for activity in schools. You heard I'm in the Rotary. I'm the International Youth Coordinator. I've taken the harassment training from the United States State Department. And I used to rep youth soccer and basketball, so be happy to do it. So with that, what I would like is consensus from the council for me to work with Councilmember Tidy and any of the rest of you who want to come down and have a work day and fix up the community building.
Anytime you're ready to do it.
Then lastly, go ahead. Lastly, there was one thing in the talk with Crystal Shoji, she mentioned that prior to COVID, her and the Planning Commission had been working on some housing ordinance things. And yesterday I had a meeting with Council President Elias and Mayor Cox, and they gave me the list of council member priorities, and I looked on it and I didn't see a housing ordinance change. And so if you like, I'll add it to the list, but that's it. So that's all I have for my report, Mr. Mayor, Council, unless there's any other questions.
I have some questions, and I do think in there somewhere, maybe not in the short term, long term, there was, the affordable housing things on there. And I think some of the ordinance changes that were being looked at were like ADUs, which was something, to address that. That was one of the things the Planning Commission had started to look at earlier. Maybe it's not, but I know it is something that may be longer term if it didn't make, we were constrained to do our top, I think, 3 at that time. So, I did want to ask the question about getting back to the planning thing. You had said that at this point, you will be the planning director and Crystal will be the senior planner. Can you help us to understand what the difference of those two roles are?
Thank you. Certainly, typically a planning director has final signature authority on approval of planning applications. So that would be one of the main differences. And typically a planning director is more like a manager versus a doer, even though I'm perfectly capable to write a staff report, to come up with draft findings. I've done all those things and I've reviewed them many, many times. I think typically, especially when it gets to the appeal level at the city council level, when I was a city attorney, it was usually the attorneys who are drafting the findings. So I'm very familiar with all that, but I definitely know how to review them. So typically what would happen is Joseph and Crystal would do the workup and present it for approval, and then I would look for denial, and I would look, and then it would have a hearing, and then the decision would be made by the planning commission, and then I would sign the final orders with the planning director. So, and then there's administrative approvals in there, which kind of fits in with the overall idea of kind of it's almost like a city administrator in some way. So that's the difference. And I think for Crystal, it was kind of I think it will free up some, she seems to think it was a good idea and that would be helpful.
Okay, and then, so you've explained what the planning director role is, so what then is the senior planner role at that point?
That's more of, so I'll call it like a technician or so. So sometimes they would do most of the workup and they wouldn't have any final authority to approve or deny on an administrative level. So in planning, some decisions can be made by a planning director, and then some have to be made by a planning commission, and then some are appealed or approved by the city council. So that's the difference. She would she would essentially be kind of coming to me with more or less a final product, and I might be looking and going, what about this, what about that? So it's kind of just a management, but you know, she'd be a senior staff level, and then also she would be also still doing a lot of the work with Joseph Harrison, who is here, and she would be kind of teaching him some of the nuts and bolts of planning, like she's doing currently. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, it sounds like we're figuring it out. I mean, I'll figure it out as we go.
I can, you know, I think it might make sense if you and me talk about it outside of the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's fabulous, John.
Really appreciate all your work
Absolutely fabulous.
and absolutely jumping in feet first. Thank you very much.
So not complicated.
No,
No mystery.
no.
Fabulous. I saw the list for the roller skating thing that was sent to me, but I was also told that even if we did this, it wouldn't happen.
I'm glad it
Make up.
is. Yeah, that's where we
It's
do.
a powder.
That's it. I think it's too bad we just have.
So does that mean that we've already gone, since you gave the administrator report, that also counts as finance and planning?
Unless you have questions about either of those, I was not made aware, so, yeah, I think there was Joseph, was there a planning application I needed to, anyway, no, yes, it does take care of it. It takes care of it.
Okay. All right, so we'll move into our liaison reports. We kind of went to paper, but I'm not sure that we're there this month. So Gary, anything from fire? Are you fire district?
I don't know how I got on that.
Fire district friends. I mean, it does.
It was gonna be me. It was doing,
That's okay.
yeah, I was gonna take that up. So I didn't go to that one. I didn't get to that meeting. But that was gonna be me. I took that.
Let's run through this just for
Yeah.
clarification for John real quick. So fire district is Counselor Tyke.
Yes.
TLT is still Counselor Fogwood.
Everything looks great except for the fire district. It was just me.
Okay, good. And it's D is the last letter of your name, Tim? I'm so confused. No, all right. So fire, no, TLT.
So I think Joseph's still trying to set up a meeting with our TLT committee, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Where I was supposed to be, but I'll get right on it.
Well, I thought you had been sending emails out this last week, and I responded back to you that Steve Cordier was one of the people. Does that ring a bell?
And Joseph, you might want to come up and talk into a microphone, please.
Maybe I would have to look back on my emails, but I thought I was corresponding with you.
Those don't sound familiar, but I might not be remembering off the top of my head. I will make sure to check.
Okay.
If not tonight after the meeting, then tomorrow.
Okay.
If I am doing it, then I'm happy to keep doing it, but I do not believe the TLT committee is one of the committees that I've been assigned.
Okay. I'll have to look back through my emails. then.
We just, and we approved the,
We approved the liaison set up with Gary as the fire guy. So
minutes ago.
just minutes ago. So that would have been a good thing to correct. Yeah,
Oh, right.
I don't know if anybody wants to do that or,
That was in
Look at
some of the
that.
minutes.
yeah, it was in the minutes that we just approved.
I think you could just entertain a motion to reassign that and it'll go on the next minutes.
Okay, sounds good. I would entertain a motion to reassign the fire department to Greg.
Second.
Any questions?
I'll take it.
All right, Counselor Webb,
Well, yeah.
Counselor Fogwood,
Tim, yes.
Counselor Burns,
Yes.
Counselor Tidy,
Yes.
Counselor Velez.
Yes.
Okay, on to watershed.
Okay, so I did a written one, so I don't know if any of you guys got a chance to read it. There's all sorts of amazing things going on. I'll just highlight two things. On June 6th, the Watershed Council is going to be holding an educational presentation. The focus is going to be on forest stewardship in our watershed. So there's going to be stuff about how you can full gorse and help to be a good steward, especially for people who own land in our watershed. So that will be a great event. Other things, we're moving along on purchasing that parcel, or slowly but surely moving, but we're getting there. And then one thing I neglected to put onto here is that you may remember back in March or something, maybe it was February, we talked about moving forward with an intergovernmental agreement with the Curry Soil and Water District. And that's something I've started to draft. I talked with Gary and he said, just start to draft it. So hopefully in this next month, I'll be able to share it with John and then bring it back to you. So that's all, unless anybody has any questions about anything else in the report.
Thanks. Any questions?
Oh, one other thing, just I will bring up to you, John, just so that you know, is since you were talking about insurance and facilities, the Watershed Council is still really interested to figure out how to get the wetland walkway repaired. And that had come up as one of those things where we could make an insurance claim, is what we had learned from our former administrator. So I don't know if that ever came up to you, but.
I haven't heard, I feel like it was one of the many things I heard in the last couple of days. But
Okay.
sometimes the agent of record is the person who can help navigate that claims for us. It's one of the services that a lot of them provide. So I think we can mention it to her and she may do some.
She's abreast to the situation already.
Oh,
Yeah.
Of the nature of this walkway. It's like $1,000 deductible and everything.
Oh, you got, so someone,
Yeah.
I'll somehow try to follow up on that.
I'll come talk to you.
Thank you.
I'm just bringing it up because it's been one of those things that
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
talked about. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for the written report. Okay, Port.
Port's really got some exciting news today. We on a crane replacement project, which is almost $2.3 million.
$2,315,696.
Of which about 700 was for us to come up with, and we have been trying really hard. Scott's been just manager of the Port Path, has been working really hard on it. And today we learned that rather than a low interest loan, we were able to get a full grant to cover the $700,000.
Good job, man.
And Pat's really been just fabulous on that project. So you might tell him thank you when you're done. That's all I got.
Nice. Parks.
Parks, we'll have our new meeting. We've been slacking on meetings, just having some issues. But what we did buy has started to trickle in. We got our barbecue grills in today. So we'll start getting the park ready for July 4th. Looking forward to July 4th in the park.
Thank you. Emergency management.
We've got a container being worked on from the county. It'll go up to the Vista Fire Station for cash for some of our medical supplies that we've got stored at Jim House property. And we're working on a community campaign on different aspects of the emergency preparedness that we'll be kicking off in a month or two.
Are we still working with remember the trailer guy with the radios?
Mm-hmm.
Is he still in the mix?
He might be one of the members of the commission.
Okay, very good.
And we're, a really exciting thing happened. I've been working with Joe Kinnick, the head ranger of state parks, and he just got back. We had a final meeting and they're prepared to discuss using the head state park for an emergency response hub. So that was really exciting. We'll probably work toward having its own ham radio setup and cache and a whole setup that if there's an emergency, that would be the spot where everything would be mobilized. It's good ground and secure property. So we're really excited about that.
Awesome. Good.
Will we have anything up the other way, Gary? I mean, we kind of,
And then we'll have the trailer for communication, so we have
oh,
two.
gotcha, okay,
And it could go up on the top of Dee and we cover both ends.
right,
down.
okay.
Excellent. And we're gonna have to bypass school district tonight because Councilor Rask isn't present, and back to you. Gary.
Main Street, finally got the guide to the printer. There's been so many changes in businesses.
Yeah.
Susan's been trying to nail all that down, so it's being printed now. And Main Street has given Parks a proposal to be the coordinator for the visitor center.
We'll bring it down.
So I think that would be a really,
Would you say that again, Gary?
Main Street would take on the volunteers that would be running the visitor center.
Right now, Main Street rents a room in the back. So they proposed, and I'll bring it to John. Susan sent me a proposal that I was gonna bring to John. So
That didn't work.
it would behoove the city, you know what I mean? So.
Because currently we don't have the visitor
Yeah,
center.
we don't have it currently open without
It
volunteers.
used to be a chamber, didn't it?
Yeah.
Main Street's taken on.
And then it went to Parks, we got right put to Parks, so, yeah, we'll bring that up to John. John.
Oh, thanks. So regarding the visitor center, I did receive the email from the Parks Commissioners about wanting to install, I think, landlines in there, maybe computer connection or something. And there was issue of safety, and I actually went down there and I went down there one day and there was nobody in there. Are we anticipating expanding the hours of operation or the hours?
It's a volunteer basis, and that's the thing that Susan was gonna propose.
Very good.
Yeah,
All right.
so, yeah, we'll bring it up to you.
Yeah, COVID pretty much killed the visitor center.
Okay, that gets us through our departmental reports. Moving on to old business, and that is the final order on the CUP 16-02 and 16-03.
Me, okay. So former pro tem city administrator Gary McMillan created this staff report. Basically, what is created for you is findings that reflect your decision on the appeal of the CUP 1602 and CUP 1603. They're here tonight for your consideration and approval. You are required to approve findings in a public meeting, although you've already essentially made your decisions. So if you agree with the proposed findings that, like I said, are intended to reflect your discussion as applicable to the chapter 17032-060 time limit on a permit for a conditional use. If you find those appropriate, you would entertain a motion as set out on the staff report.
That's about to die on the floor here. I'll move.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion's to adopt the findings of practice presented in the record of decision prepared by the city attorney and uphold the decision of the planning commission to allow the extension of CUP 1602 and CUP 1603 for a period of 1 year commencing May 18th, 2023, which is the conclusion of the local appeals process. That was the motion? Okay, any discussion on that motion?
I wouldn't mind seeing it go back to a year from when it expired.
So that's actually something that's dealt with through the LUBA case decisions. The reason this is in here is because LUBA has had that decision in front of them before, and they've made the decision that this is the applicable time period for these type of extensions.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote then. Councilor Heidi.
Yes.
Councilor Webb.
Well, yes.
Councilor Burns.
Yes.
Councilor Pogwitz.
Tim, yes.
And Councilor Veliz.
Yes.
Thank you, Shayla. Okay, so we're on to new business now. We have learned that 8A, we can go ahead and strike that off. I should have done it at the start of the meeting, the computer service purchase. And you already had filled us in on 8E for the water engineering service, so we can go ahead and take that off. Just to clarify that, we had the proposal in front of us for a little additional engineering services, but we are pumping the brakes on that unless you tell us otherwise until we kind of get through the budget and other stuff we have going on. Is that?
Thank you. Actually, on number B, AV system replacement funding source, we are looking for, as you can see in the staff report, a motion to approve the funding. And I think if you just say a motion to approve the funding as described in the staff report, that would be appropriate. And there was a question, Mr. Mayor.
With hiring or adding Mr. Johnson back, I just want to talk to him about 8A and 8B. And I was going to talk about that if we've already approved it. For the funding source, there is a $75,000 line item in our budget for city hall improvements equipment. That only $900 of that has been done, and the $900 was for consultation for the audio video. So we still have, so it doesn't need to come out of the general fund. It can come out of that audio. I'm talking about the 8A. It can come, so I don't want to strike it, you know what I mean? Because it would come out.
I'm sorry, we didn't strike that. No, that was the computer service purchase and 8E, the water engineering service, and that's where it got messed up because I kind of fumbled through.
The funding source is all I want. My question was.
Thank you. I think we just need to take these one at a time. And just, and on the first one, let's just take a look at the staff report about the computer service. If it asks for anything at the end, the recommended staff source funding, non-departmental budget, repair maintenance. And it says motion to confirm the emergency purchase of a tower server in the amount of $18,000 from the general fund non-departmental regular line item. So there's such a motion. We're staff seeking a motion.
I make them
Yeah, so
second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
So on the audio video,
that was this is the server we talked about.
That's why I got
okay, what about all of the choices? Now, these are all, that's all server stuff.
I think we actually already had this whole discussion in March and we approved it all in March. And that's what she worked on. And so I think.
I kind of agree. One of my first calls was to her, and she's already got the servers coming next week. So Gary may have just been, I don't want to say overwhelmed, but he may have just had a lot more to do. Perhaps this motion doesn't need to be made. It doesn't hurt to reapprove something you've already approved. And in case you hadn't before, it's good to do.
Now we have the final amount.
Yeah. No, but I'm a little confused. On page 40 or 39 and 40, there's all of these choices.
That's the AV equipment. We're still talking about.
That is, yep, it still is.
The cloud backup, and I don't think we've had any discussion on those items.
I seem to remember when we had that discussion last time, we never got around to the cloud backup
It
part.
was cheaper. It was monthly. It was in the monthly. It was, if you look at it,
It's pretty expensive.
so expensive.
If I could, going back to page 33, this might be why Gary put this together, because he's really on this motion, and is that it's only to do the emergency management replacement in the amount of $18,275 currently, with it taken from the line item that he's talking about. So all of the other items, I think, is, perhaps options, but that's really the specifics of the item that is before you right now.
So would we discuss this other part at another time? Or?
The cloud and whatnot, I believe so. So that's why I think if I'm reading appropriately, he's trying to do one thing at a time, especially given all the constraints and whatnot. That's my understanding, but Janet from CompuTalk will be down here next week, and I will certainly have follow-up conversation with her about all of these things at that time. Yeah. Okay.
What would you feel more comfortable with, the motion or building?
I would feel comfortable doing the motion that Gary Millman is putting.
I think we did that. Did we do that?
Well, this question was, Gary's was, at the time, was where we were gonna pay for this equipment from. That's why he put it in a non-departmental fund, when actually there's a line item in our budget for this, for equipment, for City Hall. So we actually, I'd rather put it in that line item than in the general fund. That was mine.
Is that 75,000?
Yes, that was the 75,000 for City Hall City Hall repair and improvement.
Okay, so if I'm understanding,
So there were some things done last year at budget session that don't coincide with prior years, but but we're safe because it was budgeted for, but there's 75,000.
Well,
That's way more.
There was 40,000 cents for the audio video system, and then we also had put in for a security camera system that CIS had asked us to put in for this building.
So you did find
Yeah,
that the
we-
audio video was put in?
Yes, that
Okay.
was the 70, yeah,
That explains it also. Thank you.
that was where the line item is there. We just haven't been able to find it. And
Nope, good.
in the last finance thing, it literally was the very top,
Okay.
it was hidden away.
So my question is, was there a motion on the table?
so if I understand, Councilmember Tidy did make the motion, but it wasn't the same as was recommended here, because what's recommended here is it's be taken from the general fund, non-departmental, and Councilmember Tidy is making the motion for the amount, but from a different fund.
Capital outlay, yeah.
So that's the motion.
Okay, so that's all clear. Did we get a second on that motion?
I had made a second
That's
on it.
right. Just clarifying. Any other discussion on that?
Awesome.
All right, Counselor, I'll call for the vote. Counselor Webb? Yes. Counselor Burns?
Yes.
Counselor Pogwitz?
Tim, yes.
Counselor Velisis?
Yes.
And Counselor Tidy?
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you. I think we're on AV equipment, if I remember
Yes.
correctly, as soon as I find my.
Yes, and this is on page 42 of your packet. And if I could, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
So this may be a similar motion to what Councilmember Tidy made earlier, because when I look at page 42 of your agenda packet, the motion that Gary Millman was asking for was to appropriate 13,000 from general fund non-departmental. But as the council just discussed, the funds exist in the capital, the city capital. Yep. So I think, would there be then a motion to appropriate 13,000 from the capital repairs for City Hall to pay for the AV equipment?
Also move.
Second.
So budgeting can be tricky. And sometimes you don't want money coming from one place to do one thing and another. Does this look, well, I think the brains look at this.
No, I just, that's why I was sort of late to the meeting, because I would have talked to Dave. And Dave, I watched him and doing the details, and the reason why I say this is the $900 that just came for this audio video system, the consultation fee is on that, under the equipment.
Okay.
So it's in that line item now, so therefore that's where it needs to be. And obviously that's where Dina put it today, so that's where this all should go, not in the general fund.
Did we didn't apply for a grant from CIS or anything for
No.
security?
This, I don't think this is for the security, this is just for this.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No,
Right.
this said City Hall,
Yeah, yeah.
it said City Hall equipment, it said City Hall upgrades, and then the next line item says equipment. Yeah. But it was mostly, it was audio video system and a security camera system for this entire building. Which we don't have.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? We'll call for the vote on that then. Counselor Velisis?
Yes.
Counselor Burns?
Yes.
Counselor Tidy?
Yes.
Counselor Webb?
Webb, yes.
Counselor Pogwitz?
Tim, yes.
Okay, make some progress. Now, 8C, the request from the Jubilee Committee. Well, have that in your packet. It's on page 40.
So I would motion, are we just having a discussion right now on this? We don't need a motion. Are we acting on this today?
Don't we get recommendations from the CIS committee before we?
Pardon me?
I mean, wouldn't we be getting recommendations from the committee?
Well, that's what I was gonna get at. So do we want to go into discussion without a motion?
Let's just go into discussion because we need to come up with some answers for Jubilee.
Okay,
You
so,
know, and it's super important to all of us. It's a little off script, but let's
Okay.
just start the conversation. Go right ahead.
perfect. So that's what I was going to try to explain. So years ago, we voted to give, out of our $10,000 grants, which I think Ann did some research, it was 11,000, correct, Ann?
Well, according to our policy in the book, it's
Right.
11,000.
So, and I thought about that more and I do understand that better now. So it was 11,000. So Jubilee came to us and said, we're having a hard time coming up with the money to put for a down payment on the fireworks. Is there any way we can get, I think they asked for like 4,500 every single year to guarantee that we have money for a down payment. And council decided as a council, yeah, that'd be a good idea. But that would take almost half of the budgeted $11,000. So I think at that time, if I remember correctly, it probably didn't hit ordinance form, but the ordinance didn't get changed. But if I remember correctly, our finance director at the time says, look, what we can do is we can just bump the TLT up to 15,000 to cover that. So there would still be 10,000 in there to split up amongst the other grant applicants. So the thing about this is it really needs to go to the TLT committee and they need to vet it, like Brett brought up, and then send it to council and for us to decide. But if they're asking for a full 15,000, that's all the grant money. Nobody else will get any money. So this council would have to decide, do we want to bump our grant monies up, or do we not want to fund that much money with fireworks? I support the fireworks wholeheartedly. It brings a whole lot of folks to Port Ophir. They spend a whole lot of money. I understand it. It's just, there are some complications to what they're asking for, and those are what I just spoke of.
No, we would
We
know.
are here, by the way, for this question.
Thank you.
I didn't clarify that. What?
So that's really all I have. I mean, that's where we're at with this. It's just basically, they should go through the TLT committee and have them vet this and then bring it to us.
Because they would be looking at every.
They're gonna be looking at everyone, and I can tell you probably what they're gonna do. They're gonna split it up because that's the thing. But that's the way they're asking for a grant. So they have to go through a process to get there. Now, if they want to come to council and just ask for more money, then they can do that. And council would have to decide, is that viable or not? But that could open up a whole can of worms for other entities doing the same thing next year.
I think it's fair to, I think it's fair to say that this is unique.
Yeah.
It's just, it's in our DNA and we felt it not having it. It was just felt, it was like, it shook us to our core, you know. I just, like, I can't see myself seeing any other event as an equal, or, you know, if somebody came in and said, I gotta get $4,000 or whatever, you know, I'd be like, oh, well, you know. But if there's a way to work this out, it's more expensive now. It is what it is. I'm not really even asking for more fireworks. It's just the fireworks are more expensive, which is pretty understandable.
So Tim, can you clarify the TLT revenues that are in excess of 50,000 this year? What does that mean? Is that just because we haven't used it in the past couple of years because of COVID?
So no, those extra monies, the way I understand it from Mr. Milliman, are TLT, the folks that collect these TLT funds have paid in more money. Your STRs, your RV parks, your motels have paid in more money. The folks that visit
was
those.
budgeted.
Yes, than was budgeted. But that doesn't automatically mean that money gets to go into the grants, because we have an ordinance that says there's $11,000 that gets granted, but really that should say 15,000, because it did get changed a couple years ago.
So the ordinance didn't get changed, though?
It sounds like the ordinance didn't get changed, because Ann couldn't find anything other than the 11,000.
Yeah, I was looking it up and it raises the question of, like we have our book of codes or whatever, and then somebody makes a change, like the council makes a decision, and does it ever actually get in there?
No.
It's a real problem. It's actually a real problem. I also was looking at it and, there's this thing about, I'm not even gonna go there. I want to ask a question of you, if you don't mind. Are you thinking of this as kind of like a one-time thing? Because that we're getting out of COVID, you need extra money, the hour is late, you got to do this because the 4th of July is coming sooner? Or are you, that's what we're deciding, kind of like a one-time thing rather than like setting the new expectation that we're going to be putting the bill at a higher level all the time, right? Is that to clarify?
Thank you for that question. That's exactly what I did want to clarify. We actually are requesting funding on an ongoing basis.
At the higher level?
At a higher level.
Okay.
We had initially put in a TLT grant for up to $10,000 for this year, but we hadn't heard back yet for this year, so we're still waiting. And for next year, Gary had contacted us asking for input for the next year's budget.
Mm-hmm.
And what did we need for that? And then as a board, we met and decided we wanted to ask for $15,000 for next year.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got into a discussion, well, if things hadn't been decided for this year and if there were money, we should go ahead and ask for $15,000 for this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank
So
you.
it's sort of two different requests. There's TLT and then there's budget. And in my mind, when we were asking for more money on an ongoing basis, that wouldn't necessarily come from the grant program because that is limited to 11,015.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how it all works. Like from the discussion with Gary, I would the impression that maybe it would be a separate Jubilee line item in the budget, separate from the grant program.
And some of the way the TLT money works, which I'm struggling still to figure out, it sounds like, and maybe you know this, John, that it sounds like 70% or something can go to, like 30% has to go to tourism and promotion, and at the state level statute, 70% can go to other things. Do you know about that? Or is it?
I'm a little rusty, but so
Yeah.
I would have to go and look and come back. I wasn't really involved in preparing this staff report and tracking down all the details. I'm kind of like I'm less than the city council. I have less background than you all on this, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. I apologize.
So
But it seems like there's two questions. Can we do this now and long term? And those, you're asking
So
for
in
both,
ordinance-
but maybe two different things.
They are two different things.
So would it take us 60 days to get an ordinance with,
So now that I've said that there's not an ordinance, I'm wondering if we did pass an ordinance to give the Jubilee that amount of money. Did you come up with anything? It sounds like it didn't.
I found the 11,000.
That's the original, what our grants were.
David brought up 5,000, giving them 5,000.
And we all agreed as a council on that would be a good thing to do, but it sounds, well, yeah, it just sounds like it didn't hit paper. And obviously, we're not trying to rescind any of that. That doesn't, just because it didn't hit paper, don't mean we can't straighten it out. But yeah, there's two questions here, really. It sounds like to me that your group is asking to be a permanent part of our budget.
To me, that makes sense. I do think those funds would come from the TLT tax. But maybe have us not go through the grant program. That would be a line item.
Jim, do you remember what traditionally the split was, or like how, like percentage wise, was it 50-50 or?
On fireworks?
Yeah.
No, they asked, it would be helpful if they could get the first 5,000 and then they would fundraise for the rest. But we're going back to where, like Brett mentioned, fireworks cost 7,000 to put on a show. And I don't know if we're putting on the same show with the same amount of fireworks or not, but it sounds like it's gone up to 15,000, which, I mean, we've all seen inflation, it's pretty crazy.
That is a very important question though. Is this 15,000 just for fireworks?
No, it would be for general Jubilee support, because we are still doing fundraising for the fireworks.
So so I guess I would need to know what support, what are we getting for the 15,000?
Well, it would essentially be the fireworks, but we also have other expenses. We have insurance, we have storage, we have set up every year. So.
What do you mean setup? Like the fireworks are done by the fire department?
Porta potties, things like that.
There's advertising.
Well, when was the $11,000 allocated? How many years ago was that? And if we apply CPI at 3% over that decade, what's that turn into? Is it reasonable to focus on changing that dollar amount?
If council agrees that that's what we should do, that's something we should do. I think one of the biggest questions would be for councilors to ask themselves is, how much money do we want to spend basically burning up money? I mean, and don't get me wrong, the 4th of July event's great. It brings a lot of people to Port Orford. Every business in Port Orford makes money off of it. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The only businesses that don't are the ones that close on the 4th of July. But that'd be the biggest question we would have to, it's kind of like, we're under a timeline here. So
What about this idea? We got 50,000 extra. We're loosely considering putting this in the budget. If we took 35,000 of that to fund that line item for the next budget, it would get everybody a head start, but it's just hard to commit to that kind of money every year.
Yeah,
I mean, and under that line of thinking is like, whether we take that.
But real quick, if $11,000 was $11,000 10 years ago, then 20,000 is 11,000 now.
But also 7 years ago, we were collecting money on STRs and Airbnbs.
I just,
So that's why the money has went up for TLT taxes, because we weren't collecting that stuff. So that's when this was the 11,000. So the increase, I mean, I see that, you see that?
correct. Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's why we have more money than that. You know, the influx, we really wouldn't have had the influx per se if we wouldn't have been collecting on these STRs.
Total TLT is
115 or something.
Yeah, just a lot of that goes to parks.
So, yeah, so back to Ann's question. So there were 2 regulations on TLT monies. There were some that changed in the state, I'm gonna say 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, maybe. That was when it was a 70-30 split. They had to spend 30 on advertising and 70 could go into the general fund of a city.
30 on tourism and promotion. Yeah.
Correct. But before that, it was the whole 100% was unregulated and could go into the general fund. And that's kind of what's happened. It's gone into the general fund, but Port Orford had decided, well before my time, they had grants for different projects for beautification and for advertising. Go ahead, John.
Oh, thanks. So Mr. Mayor and, I already.
I'm sorry, I'm Jen Bailey, I'm the
Jen.
secretary.
So I'm trying to, it sounds like we're sort of having a budget-ish discussion, which to me, it seems like is the ask for a dollar amount for this year's event. I mean, besides, it sounds like you said we're looking for 2 things. One, to be included in the budget in the future. In my opinion, that should come before the budget committee when we do all that stuff. And I don't know that it's productive for us to do that, but are we talking about a specific amount for this year's event that you want the council to approve? Is that
Yes,
part of what you're here
yes,
for?
we'd like you to
Can
consider
you
this.
describe that a little more clearly for us and how it fits within our current TLT rules and regulations? And have you gone to the TLT committee? And is this the meeting, Councilman Pogwitz, that you were asking Joseph to be set up? Are they supposed to be reviewing these grants? And will there be time for that before the time that things come
They
to
have to
order?
order. I mean, they have to.
No, they should have already ordered them.
Right, that's why I'm wondering if we add, if they get to 15 now, what if we give them 20 and then got 5 next year, a holdover to order again, and then now you're back to 15, and it seems more reasonable.
Well, we have to budget for all that.
Well,
We
I'm just saying.
budgeted last year for 5 to make sure it was in the budget. They get 5. But we're trying to decide, I think John's trying to split it into two different problems.
Yes.
Let's try to fix the short-term problem and work on the long-term problem the proper way, which would be vetting it properly through budget and then through us and maybe even the TLT.
So for now, it seems like the consideration on the ask of the specific amount, if I'm understanding, you're seeking, is it 10? What is it?
We submitted a TLT grant application back in February.
Okay.
For 10.
And what has happened with that?
We've all been in the city.
So the problem, the grant process, we've had a lot going on in the last few months. So I don't want to go into what happened, but we have not completed the TLT process. It should have already been completed, but we're working towards that. And maybe I was communicating with Gary Milliman about this. But anyway, he had contacted 2 or 3 or 4 of the members, and we were setting up a meeting, but I've been waiting to hear when that meeting is, and I have not heard. But anyway, the budget is for 5. What they're asking for now is an additional 10. Am I correct, for this year?
Yes, we hadn't realized that there was any kind of pre-existing arrangement about 5, and we budgeted for 5.
Okay.
When we put in that application for 10 last year, we didn't know that you'd made that decision about 5. We didn't know how much the overall fund was.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But now you haven't made a decision yet. We would like you to consider 15 instead of 10.
Well, it would be a total of 15, in my opinion. It wouldn't be more than that. That's my opinion.
Oh, yeah, it would never be more.
So to be the 5 plus 10, this would equal 15, but.
So the question is, if we make this decision now, would we then be, you're saying we take out, there'd be no money per TLC unless we subsequently.
Unless this comes out of another line item, I mean. Go ahead.
Bottom of page 44, as described in the TLT ordinance, no grant shall exceed 50% of the total project cost.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Well, so how do we get beyond that?
What is that, the state? See, I got a little bit
Says
confused.
TLT.
No, that's our own.
That's our own.
So that ordinance is what is an issue.
So this ordinance, if you guys, if we decided as a council to change it, would be, we would have to sit down and rework the whole ordinance. We can't do that between now and July 4th, I guarantee it. Not with everything else we got going on. So the other way around it, the only way around it I can see is they're not asking for a TLT grant. They're sitting here, the city council asking for more money. Is the way around it that I see. But I'm not saying that's what we do. I'm just saying that's the only way I can see it happen.
Legally, I mean, or we've been
No,
breaking our own rules.
they can't be here asking for a TLT grant for 50% of $11,000 because we can only give them, $5,500.
Or they'd have to match, they have to match it under this. If they take the money, they have to match. it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
But they match the 10 with the 5 that we give them every year.
But no, they both would be given them both, so they can't use our money for a match. The whole thing is, it's super, there's a lot here.
It's structured pretty tightly.
So
It is.
right, I'm looking at, Mayor Cox, you said page 44. I'm looking at page 47. It might be the same thing. But, oh, sorry.
I think there's a couple of different versions.
Okay. Have you have a copy of our agenda packet in front of you? Can you tell us which page in that packet is your most recent request? Or it seems like, is it the one on page 47 or is it the one on page?
Well, my
44?
version starts at 43, pages 43 to 45. Which is usually.
So which one are we asking for? 40, so we have 45, 44. We have 40, 44 and 45, it looks like that concerns you.
And then, well, I have page 47 talks about Port Orford Jubilee fireworks and it says total cost $15,000. Are you seeing that?
Oh, gosh, yeah, we have two different agendas, because 47 for me is a recommendation from the city administrator.
Wow.
Pro tem. I don't have that.
John, I think you're talking
here.
about
I've got
under background information.
44.
I'm gonna stop talking because it looks like I'm operating on a different sheet of music.
Well, I am operating on a different one than he is too, so
Carrie, you
this
got
one
the
was
40?
picked up by my wife today at City Hall.
Say what's at the top, maybe we can all get it, because I think it's.
No, I got it, I'm here, but I'm on 44.
Yeah, and I'm on 44
So
too.
you're looking for this page, I think.
These guys.
And it says 2023 quarter for Jubilee fireworks, $15,000 total cost.
That spreadsheet comes from our February grant application that was for 10,000.
Okay.
But even then, so you're saying your total cost for the firework project was 15,000 and you were requesting 10,000?
Yes.
But,
10,000 of that.
Yes, we do have 10,000. We don't have, no, there was more.
What? Okay. I thought the whole program was a $15,000 program total.
The fireworks cost 15,000.
Mhm.
Jubilee has additional expenses beyond.
Is that what you're
Actual cost
listed
of the
down the
fireworks.
page where it says quarter for Jubilee, 5,000 to 7,500?
Yes.
Okay. So your total cost of the whole Jubilee is 15,000 plus 7,500, so 22,500 roughly? Okay. And then if that were the case, then under our ordinance, no matter what, we couldn't do more than half of that? Is that
Well,
11?
we can't do, we can do 50% of what we have allotted for TLT, which is 11,000. No.
This says no grant shall exceed 50% of total project cost. So,
Oh, okay.
so
That's
So
fine.
another- so it's-
So I think it's, since we have.
Since we haven't had any more TLT meetings for this budget this year, are we gonna be spending that money? Or is it only, we're gonna have just this one?
It's more beyond that because of this sentence,
Okay.
like not exceeding the 50%.
Well,
So
Go ahead.
I have something that perhaps city council could consider. The only way around this, I mean, you guys can see it, John's pointed out, Pat's pointed out, it's clear as a bell. The only way around this is for basically you to rescind all your TLT applications and ask the city for money to put on the fireworks show, and then the council would have to decide if they want to do that. Is that?
well,
Or ask for the minimum, or ask for the.
Yes.
so I want to ask you, so if your total project cost is 22,500, then under our ordinance, the max TLT that you could get awarded from the city would be 11,250. And how much, but you need, out of your total 22,500 project, you have $15,000 as your fireworks bill, so 11,250 would only get you a few thousand short of that. Is that correct? Okay. And you don't have any other funds to pay the difference of that? Because what else Councilmember Podwick said is, we're limited on TLT, but we would have to come up with the money from some other city fund to cover that shortfall between the 15 and the 11,250. Because we're restricted on our TLT funds. And then there's still the other issue, and I know you in good faith submitted your application back in February, and then there hadn't been a meeting scheduled by the TLT committee to consider it and give you all that. And when you look at this on page, again, it's my page 46, but it looks like this page with the details of what happens with a TLT grant application, which is, yeah, and it talks about a review process, and there's a date and time for a meeting which the committee reviews the applications, and then they submit reviewed, approved applications to the city council for a vote. You know, I don't know that we could get a committee together even to consider the 11,250, and then get it back to the city council for a vote and kind of order and pay for fireworks. What are you hearing from your fireworks supplier? What are you hearing from your fireworks supplier about what do they need and by when?
We've actually already paid half of the fireworks thus far, which has been due. Actually, the second payment would be due in early June, and we've gone ahead and paid that. We still owe half, which is 7,500. Now that's taken out of our very limited savings, which we also need for other things. But the second half of the fireworks isn't actually due to be paid until July 14th, which is, we've always paid it in advance. And I don't want to get into a situation where we don't have the money in advance. But we actually don't owe that amount until what is the city's next fiscal year.
Yeah.
So
What about parks?
what about having two TLT projects instead of one? What if you submit one for the fireworks and then whatever the other part of what you need could be maybe a different proposal? Does that not work that way?
I think, yeah, Main Street's applied for 2 and 3 different projects, but the problem still is there's a certain amount in the pot. And, you know, the more you
You
get.
know, that problem's still there, but maybe the 11,200 minimum, like, to
Correct.
alleviate that problem.
So I have a question for Staff Joseph, if he could step up to the microphone. And it basically is a question of, have you been made aware at a staff level of any other pending TLT applications before the city? You know, do you know of any other TLT applications than this one?
There's 2.
There are. Okay.
I'm aware of one that might be happening.
Okay.
I was gonna say off the top of my head, I was not aware of them.
Very good.
That is just off the top of my head, and I was not prepared to answer that question.
That's okay. I'm trying to get a gauge for how much staff knows about this, and Joseph is pretty knowledgeable.
You know, we didn't advertise for it. And it's been
So
really different this year. We
because
dropped
of the
ball.
peculiar situation, I don't really want to go into it.
We
But I
dropped the
think
ball.
everybody understands, I've been asking for this to happen since February.
Right.
And, you know, brick grants. I
We
mean,
dropped the ball.
We dropped the ball. There's no
That's a
doubt.
great way to put it, I think. And I think that we're bound legally in one, we can't just throw money at them above what we can do, but the two, to break it up into 2, you know, Jubilee and then Jubilee firework, you know.
There is.
So Main Street would have the flowers and the this and the thing or whatever. They did multiple different things that we approved in the past. Wouldn't it seem reasonable to?
I think it seems more reasonable to do it the other route to keep it cleaner, to be honest with you, but John may be able to give us advice.
So you mean just put it in the parks budget and pull 3,500 out of the parks budget? Would that be somewhere?
We're setting a precedence here by doing these kinds of things,
Right.
but we're in a position where if we don't do anything, I don't know how they're gonna struggle to pay their other half of fireworks.
I would feel more comfortable if we disregard this as a one-time, whatever we're gonna decide to help them, that recognize that this is a kind of an extenuating circumstance situation.
And we don't guarantee it beyond this point.
It's not a
because
precedent.
it'll go on, we'll work towards it, but the TLT, the future TLT ordinance is very low on the to-do list right now. I mean, that's, to put it, yeah.
So from a staff perspective, you know, staff is supposed to get the applications and organize the meetings. It sounds like that didn't happen.
It is, it's happening.
Oh,
It's just,
okay.
we've had transitions
Okay.
that you're well aware of. And
But what I've heard is there's this application and a Main Street application, perhaps there is as many as 3 TLT applications. Boy, I just wish I was more up to speed on this, but we could do everything we could to get, you know, the hearings and the decisions and the recommendations from the TLT committee by the next regularly scheduled council meeting, which is the third Thursday in June, which I think is the 15th. And I would a decision by the 15th by the city council on your question give you enough time?
Yes.
Okay.
The problem, we have budget and we could have a special meeting after a budget hearing. And it would take 3 minutes to do.
Yeah, right. Because the problem with what you're suggesting, John, is there's still only gonna be $15,000 in that pot. So they're gonna be deciding, do they give all of that to one person and not do the other 2 grants?
Remind me why there's only 15,000 in the pot?
Because the ordinance says 11,000, but we added an additional 5 to that at one time, and evidently it didn't hit ordinance form, but that was to guarantee that the Jubilee got 5 every year for their fireworks.
And the 15,000 in the pot, is that the total amount that the TLT committee can grant out to all applicants in
Correct.
1 year?
Correct.
And even though our TLT revenue this year exceeded the budget forecast by $50,000, but again, we can only spend a portion of that on tourism.
Make a motion to increase the 50,000.
It's gonna be ordinance.
No, I think it would be an ordinance.
It's gonna take, that's why I asked, would it take 60
Yeah.
days, or how many readings do we have to do? Or how quickly can we push an ordinance change through?
We can read both, we can do both readings in one meeting, but I think it still takes, it's 30 days
So
after.
you can do it as an emergency if you have findings that. make it appropriate.
I think I just want to bring up too, that I believe that when we were working on the STR ordinance, that it was recommended that we consider adopting the model TLT code to make it, the model TLT code. So anyway, there may be more things in terms of like how, since we're working on how we're collecting, you know what I mean? It's not just this decision, it may have tentacles into that. So I kind of like Tim's idea or somebody's idea of just, maybe we need to solve this problem and see if there's extra money somewhere else that we can, and do we know that in our budget yet? I mean, is there money somewhere where we can just say?
I don't
You've got a
have,
supplemental budget.
yeah, well, I just, again, to answer those questions, to me, and I've heard from our requester that if we came back at the next meeting, it would be enough time for you to still have more or less successful Jubilee. Is that correct? So I would prefer from the staff point of view to bring this back at the June 15th meeting. If we can get it in sooner, I would, but I think the questions I understand are, what other budget line items do we have if our TLT pot isn't enough? Can we increase our TLT pot? How do we do it? Can we do an emergency ordinance that day? And such. Is that fair? Because from a staff point of view, what I wouldn't like to do is for us to make a motion and decision today that kind of hasn't been vetted and then, come back. And also, and I know it wouldn't be precedent, but at the same time, it would be a precedent that we could, kind of, I don't know what, but you know what I'm saying? Problem solve on the fly. I'm
I
just not in
agree
favor
with
of
what
problem
you're saying, but I don't know if we should go through that whole giant process without perhaps getting a consensus from council if they even want to increase the TLT funds. I mean, that would be, why go through all that and then everybody votes no? So is there a consensus from council to, I don't know, that'd be a question Pat would ask. Is there a consensus from council to increase the TLT funds? The grant funds?
Right, well, and we're forgetting the other side. We were, the start of this, talking about putting it into the budget and making a light on it. There's a bunch of meat to this issue, but we have an immediate problem. And that's kind of what we need to maybe split up. And I look at this, it started with 5, and then the original request was 10, and now it's 15 because of, because the opportunity was there. But maybe if we could whittle that number down for this year, like be super lean this year, we'll open up the conversations about putting it on the budget, or we won't make a quick decision that will affect our later on decision. But we all know that we have an immediate problem that we need to fix, and how are we gonna skin that?
I agree wholeheartedly with that statement.
Yeah, and I think, we were told we gotta be conservative this year in our,
Right.
so, but we know we have this other pot of money. We're still figuring things out.
Well,
We
you
Yeah.
understand the tight pocketbook as much as anyone, and that's kind of what I'm asking is, can we just refine those numbers as tightly as possible and maybe fit it in anyhow? We need to have a backup plan. What is our bottom line timetable on this?
Yesterday.
We don't actually need to make another payment before the next city council meeting.
Okay.
If we only end up with 5,000 this year, as a minimum, things will be very broke.
Right. And I guess what my question is we are trying to make sure that this next Jubilee happens without a hitch. And I think everybody's amiable to having this more in-depth conversation about putting a line item on it or making the changes. I just don't want to convolute that with a quick decision tonight or.
So personally, if I remember correctly, and Gary could probably know a little better on that, those two other grants, but we could probably swing staying within the 15,000, paying off the fireworks, which is $7,500, and still funding the two other grants. That would be probably, in my opinion, where we're at right now. We'll try to help them by paying off the other half of the fireworks. And I know that's gonna not be perfect for you because you've used some of your money that you have held back that you need for other things, but at least that would pay off the fireworks. Does that sound like something that your group can work with?
For 75.
And then we got a whole year to work on what we want to do for next year. And maybe we can try to get to where you guys want to be, but.
Change the ordinance.
Yeah, but it's a big deal to do it. We have to change some things and set things in place in order to make that happen, which we probably have to start a budget, right? Then we have to change our whole TLT ordinance.
Can we put it on a budget line item and then use our portion of the TLT money without changing the ordinance to compensate that line item? Like, because we got our portion of the TLT that isn't under those stipulations, so can we use that to put into that line item?
When you say our portion, you mean the part by statute that we're allowed to go to general fund?
Yes, yes.
And it is allowed, all that extra money that we keep talking about, the extra 50,000, we are allowed to put that into the general fund. That's what we do. We put it in toiletries, in the bathrooms, at the visitor center, the boat ramp, I mean.
Which is parks.
Yes.
It is parks. So that's what I was wondering, if parks isn't a good place to try to find that money. It's happening at a park.
Park event.
Like I said, future budget items, so instead of the budget, we can look into that for the park, as a line item.
It would be neat if there was some sort of a way that we could have a standing fund for the ordering
Yeah,
of
revolving.
or something.
This is our one thing that we do with this. You know what I mean?
It's
And
been a
it's-
problem though. The funding for this has been a problem.
I don't want it
For
to
a very
be.
long time.
It's a huge problem.
And we've got brand new people, they're energetic and I love it. And
We want to support them. I think that everybody wants to support you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you stepping up to the plate.
And all the past Jubilee committees were very energetic.
everybody, all the Jubilees from here back to Abraham.
But they all struggled with this
Right.
one particular problem, and it would be a huge weight lifted off their shoulders if we could figure this out. But, I mean, I just can't see how to figure it out. If somebody can figure that out,
I actually thought you did figure it out.
well, I gave them my best solution that I can think of, because I think that can solve all the problems. It can get two other people that are asking for grants monies to do their projects, and it can give them money to pay off the fireworks. That's the best I can see to do personally.
So they throw out the
I think,
application.
and I think if I remember correctly, the numbers, it would cover those two grants. It's real close, but I think there's enough there and it would all work and we would all be legal.
So with the Jubilee, then we file for the application for 7,500 then? The one that we have here for the 10,000, this is valid.
Oh, no, I think the application would stand, it would just be the
Reduced.
award
Award.
would come in anywhere up, under and up to, which includes the amount you're talking about.
I wonder, there's another perhaps idea, is there any other nonprofits that could partner? That could come in and ask for a few thousand and then partner with them for that project? That could fit into that could take the whole problem away.
Well, I think the whole grant process is closed currently.
Oh, it's closed.
It is.
Gotcha.
And it started in February and it got closed shortly after that. And if somebody
Is
else
that
is
why
coming
we
to me with another project that is a very valuable project to our community as well, that we may not be able to consider.
And I think when, I really look forward to a larger conversation because we are going to be having more amounts of TLT funds. And, I've wondered about, gosh, maybe instead of just putting them out in little bits, we need to put, help our visitor center and fix, that there could be bigger projects if we have bigger amounts. So I think there's like a really great strategic conversation to be had about raising maybe the grants, but also, but there's going to be more money. So it will be a good conversation. But
Yeah,
that's
because
later.
they've naturally gone up because of STRs, one. Two, the price of a motel room, the price of an RV park, everything's gone up. So that TLT fund has grown quite
The
nicely.
only thing that has gone up is the award.
Yeah.
That's what
Correct. So I think we'll look at that.
We're turning this into kind of a mock conversation. We know that we have a little more of a timetable than we thought. I'm not trying to put anything off, but we have, I think we should direct staff to kind of come back to us with some more information on this,
Yeah.
talk with Jubilee and go that route.
And I will speak to John tomorrow. I will figure out who I've been corresponding with, and I have copies, I believe, of those other two applications in those emails.
Yeah.
And then that will help you, because probably, unless I've been dreaming or something, I've been communicating with somebody on the internet. Yeah. I've been kind of sitting on my hands waiting for this meeting, and I'm thinking the TLT people that got contacted this last couple of weeks are doing the same thing.
Like, from what I understand, and I appreciate Jubilee Committee's parents and working with us, he said we've got a little more time. We can bring it back at the next meeting, a month, on June 15th. And if I'm getting the council direction, if they can't get funded fully under the TLT, that you're asking us to come up with another funding source to cover the difference. And I think those are some pretty concrete parameters to work within. And I think on June 15th, we'll have a more clear direction. Then the long-term stuff will be a lot of fun down the road. But that'll be after we get a good Jubilee going. Is that good enough? I mean, that makes sense.
Are there any other things in this long list of things that we need to have guidance on?
So the advanced approval for the OLCC permit, that's a little out of the ordinary. And have we had? Well, I guess no, they get OLCC at the community building all the time.
We did approve that.
We did approve that last.
We did approve that, correct?
No, you haven't. You approved our adult prom at the community center back for April 1st.
So did we get an
You
application?
did get some preliminary paperwork. then, but
Okay.
We didn't ask you to vote on it or review it because our plans weren't solid and they've changed in the meantime.
Okay, so we have to see a
So-
map drawn out. You already know you have to have security. I mean, you got to follow all the OLCC guidelines.
Yeah, so things have changed in the last 2 weeks. There's a possibility of us working with a local restaurant and having them have a food truck at Buffington Park and at Battle Rock, and then having them serve the alcohol through their OLCC license.
But they would have to apply.
And then,
No, they have to.
No, you gotta have an event.
This is a different application. This
it would
is
be a
significant.
different application, with different OLCC rules.
Yes, they have to
So,
draw
and
a
that will
map.
simplify things for us because it's basically not feasible for the Jubilee to be selling alcohol ourselves.
Okay.
We would need, just trying to get insurance.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, under this arrangement, the restaurant would donate the proceeds of the sale of alcohol to the Jubilee. So we still have that fundraising benefit.
I think the
So-
traffic is probably the big one.
So for OLCC, I did have one question, which I was looking today at the difference between whether the Jubilee were doing it ourselves versus having the restaurant do it. And about the presence of minors. It seems like if the restaurant does it and it's a temporary use of the annual license, there's nothing in there that actually restricts having minors inside the beer garden area. So it would be up to, so I wanted to ask you for guidance on whether.
My experience, like personal experience, it's delineated and no minors and black and
A
white.
fence, you have to actually have a fence around it, and minors cannot be in the fence. I mean, we've done this before inside the community building one year, and I mean, it was, we had to have a certain amount of security guards. And yeah, you could not let a child go in that fenced-in area.
What about like the roads you go around?
They had to apply for one this year. If I'm not-
But there wasn't.
That's in our decision.
Separate.
Yeah, so we're not even, pardon me, I was, I'm sorry, Councilman, I was having a sidebar with Council Hudlak, and she was saying, she's not sure your question is even our decision, that it's kind of OLC, and we don't have a lot of leeway there. So are we?
We're just a check.
So, yeah, so Mr. Mayor, are we down on number 3 on?
Yeah, we're on number 3, which is to authorize the use of Battle Rock Buffington Park for a vendor's fair. Jubilee is seeking to utilize Buffington Park and the entire parking lot of Battle Rock for the event. They are also seeking the use of the A-frame building for the use and support of the event. They report that they have been in contact with the owners of Redfish, and the restaurant has no objection to closing the entire parking. Okay. The city has a lease agreement running through March 2024 for the use of the A-frame with
Siskiyou Distillery.
And just for the record, that parking lot is the city's, if anybody needs permission to use it. Any questions on that?
Well, I think.
Sorry.
No, but here's what I think Gary Millman, he was saying, I think in an abundance of caution, that we should confirm in writing that the business didn't have an objection to us closing that parking lot down. And we did get an email from the Redfish restaurant folks that said they don't oppose. That would only be, I think, something that could help us decide whether we were gonna, it is ours. Or whether we okay. So they, just in case that was a concern of your decision, that has been, seemed to be alleviated.
Okay, so in the past, doesn't this go to Parks and we get a recommendation for all of this? They come and say, we recommend that you approve this, the whole thing, and we say yes, and it's done.
Pretty much.
So we're operating well with outside of norms.
We haven't had a parks meeting in 3 months because
They haven't had a parks. So,
The Jubilee had actually planned to be in
Yeah,
parts.
they had, because of situation, we haven't had one for 3 months. So, yeah, they tried to do this 3 months ago, it's been pushed back.
Just those 3 items?
No, there's
It
more.
says here that,
10 items.
that, I mean, this thing makes the recommendation of our police department reviewing and approving the plan for blockading the parking lot entrance. I don't know if that has happened. I mean, it seems like a good idea, so they just close it.
Yeah, they closed it in the
Did
past.
last year, yeah.
Yeah.
They,
Looking at this list of 10 things, should we? I mean, Parks can do an emergency meeting if they have.
Do they have, well, we have a meeting coming up on the 1st, so we can put this on the parks meeting,
So
get
are
bust
we,
it through, and then come to you guys.
does
Why don't we
that
do
better
that?
serve
I
everyone?
like it. I think that's why we have.
That's what I was trying to
Yes.
determine earlier.
Split.
On this list of 10 items, actually, if you skip over that list and get down to the other pages, there's actually A through F.
okay.
And we've already gotten through C here. So if we could discuss D and F.
So,
She's running the meeting fast.
so D is a waive the peddler.
Oh, yeah, waive the, that was like the $5
The
stamp
$5
in the city hall. And that was a big hang up last year of people didn't want to come into the city hall.
Because of $5.
Well, it was just a hassle to come in here to fill out an application and everything else. Just small people. It's not like it's Circle K that's doing this. It's somebody doing arts and crafts. It's like the bingo all out of it.
Quite frankly, I don't even know where this peddler's license fee come from, but I do recall having this conversation for a reason, and it was somehow, it was the only way we could, like if a guy just pulled up at car care and started unloading a table and selling fishing hats or whatever, it was our only way to have teeth to say to him, you have to leave. And it now applies to all vendors. That's how it came about.
And, you know, like, the farmer's markets and things like that, I think that it's common. It would be neat if they could issue the permit or the thing, so they wouldn't have to.
Yeah, but we have that farmer's market every Saturday, it's coming up, and none of those people are gonna come into City Hall and know
But they
that have to.
should.
But
I don't think they even know they have to.
They do it on a private property.
Yeah, they
This
do.
is a public.
Hold on now, my business, I mean,
So-
your business, your business license.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
So to execute this, could someone just entertain a motion to waive the peddler fees on July 4th?
Do we want to just
Could I ask
approve the whole thing?
Could I ask a question? Yeah, I think that's all possible. Is it possible, could we consider the Jubilee the peddler and then all those people just operate under one peddler license for the Jubilee? I don't know.
So we have an ordinance, right? So we're talking about ordinance, and we just said, there's no way we can
Right.
step on the ordinance, but we're gonna step on this one.
Right.
Well, which
So we
one?
can't step on this one, we'll step on this one.
So which one are you talking about? The peddler license?
Yeah, well, that's in the business license, ordinance, you know.
It is.
It is.
But what we're talking about is possibly not stepping on it, but saying they're getting the peddler.
I get that.
You think
That's
that's
the
a little
latest,
too
little fresh air here to come in. I think that you probably do that, but,
The Jubilee also has a business license, and we got it with the understanding that that would help us waive the peddler license fee. That was one message we got from the former city administrator. But then-
that's possible, yeah. So it could be like if the Pepsi man that sells at Ray's, does he need to have a business license?
He's supposed to, absolutely, yeah.
He is. See, my read on that was he wasn't, because Ray's was the vendor.
Yeah.
Or the.
I remember having this whole conversation,
Really, we've got some.
pretty
We've got
convoluted.
some work to do.
Well, that means anyone who makes a delivery here has to have a business license. So anyone who makes a delivery here.
So let's do it this way. How many vendors do you expect?
3 days worth? We're not sure what's supposed to
Let's say
20?
20.
There's $100.
I mean, I'm almost willing to donate
You're gonna pay
$100
$100.
to end this conversation. But let me ask John if that covers this whole peddler's licensing, if I donated $100 to the Jubilee to cover the peddler's license.
It's not just that, though. It's asking the vendors to fill
Right.
out that fee,
It's,
which
so what we do with the peddler's license, we have a sort of a data, they get entered into our system.
I totally
and whatnot.
understand.
So what I'm suggesting is that the Jubilee be considered the peddler, and then it's like an umbrella.
But they charge a fee. They charge $20.
No, they're charging $50.
$50. So they charge $50, but 5 is outrageous.
Oh, not that the.
it's not the money amount. It's the fact that we're asking them to fill out a form asking whether or not they're a felon, their weight, color of eyes. We
I don't think we asked if
We
they're a
already-
felon.
That's what's on the peddler's license.
Yes, we do.
We do? Oh, I get vote for that.
She goes through a background check on everyone. Into the code. She does a background check
Okay,
on
I
everyone.
think we have a.
What's the question? I mean, so what if you are felon? Then what? Does the ordinance say you're disqualified? No, it doesn't. Disqualified. We just want to know. We just want to know. Right? So-
I like Don's
So,
suggestion.
Well, plus, I don't want to be critical, but you're just waiving, this calculated in terms of waiving the fee. It wouldn't waive the requirement that they come in and fill out the application.
That is for work.
Sometimes ordinances make things.
But could they do something,
Remember that.
they couldn't do something where she has like a checklist and lists all the vendors and then brings in an application and says, here's our 10 vendors for, it just wouldn't go.
You guys laugh, it's true.
all these things that are required.
Right.
Fingerprint, so what, they must, this came out in the 50s or something, is what this is.
I'm hoping I was not involved here.
1978.
78, wow. Actually, slow moving. So, 78. I mean, there was something that happened, when you read that ordinance about peddlers, they do not like peddlers in 1978, I'm telling you. It's gotta be, I mean, they got tired of the, yeah. No, there's something going on there. I think the whole thing needs to be, it's terrible.
Well, I agree. I would like to see it like on the next, I would like to see it.
It's like you can't buy panties on Sunday type. It's serious. Read it, it's ridiculous.
I don't know, I did my alcohol in Utah one year.
Okay. But I think we have some paths forward on the vendor angle of that, John.
I think we do. I'll try to read the code in a way, but the only thing that came to mind, I don't have the code in front of me, but I would think that maybe there could be the person holding the event would have the license, and then the other people operate under some umbrella. They're all considered. I just don't know. I'll have to look and see how it's written. I don't know the peddler's license ordinance, so I apologize. This is why I don't like to make decisions kind of on the fly like this. And again, you said you don't know exactly how many you have yet, but you have received pushback that they don't think it's a good.
It was a tremendous hassle last year.
Oh, okay.
And there were other vendors in other places in town who weren't getting that.
Okay. All right. Oh, I see. Well,
How do
and again, so what we're talking about are decisions being made today, and if we're already going to, have a decision on this Jubilee coming back at the next meeting, and again, all credit to Gary, because he was really just handling so many things all at once. And, I would still be willing to take a real hard look at all these things and see if there are any ways to make it happen. But if we have time on the big question, which I thought was the funding, do we have time on these as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the next item was the certified flaggers, and we have really had trouble with that, but we don't.
Well, I think that's a non-starter for us because we just don't have them. So,
Yeah,
It'd have to be both.
Yes.
because the public works people that used to do it years ago, I think they actually put in their union contract that they didn't have to do that on the 4th of July. They didn't want to do it anymore. They wanted to spend the time with their family.
This is based on a discussion with the former city administrator.
Right.
They volunteered to find that.
I know, but
That's really.
But since then, we've had a union negotiation, and the contract employees said they did not want a flag. They wanted to spend that 4th of July holiday with their families. So that's where it's become difficult.
And did they have to be certified?
Oh, gotcha.
Yes, because it's on 101.
Yeah, they have to divert traffic all around town. Well, they pay them prevailing wages.
I've been here 13 years.
No.
Sure.
Well,
I have never seen a flag.
The fire department used to set up,
Yeah, we set up here, we divert them up.
Oh, it's not what
for the parade, but that's part of the
I
Jubilee.
think
right?
our employees
But this
work
is
so
correct.
much. Yeah, it's usually our city employees.
Right,
But don't you remember in the contract, the union, they did not want to do that?
right. No, that's not, I mean, I don't even think that's an option.
It's not.
So when we used to do the 5K, Dawn and I, we
Right.
just get, we just went and talked to like Hank or somebody, they're like, can you give us 10 minutes? Your guy goes over here, and it was not a big fall, it wasn't a big deal. It didn't seem like a big,
I think ODOT makes a big deal out of this, because I have seen a document in the past about it.
So what about this? Like, this is to the detour traffic.
Of Jackson and
Like, and obviously we want our policemen involved in the parade, but could we have 2 policemen do that?
Have John work on that.
I mean, they're gonna be on duty anyways, that day probably.
So I would really defer to Chief on the law enforcement angle. to,
Right.
Chief Hobart. And
He's usually here on the floor. We usually have,
You know, my brain, I'm just throwing stuff out there.
No, that's, it's an idea.
Let's work toward that.
Yeah, well, so yeah, pending answer on that unfortunately too, but we have established that we do not have certified flaggers at this point.
Sure, my understanding from staff was that there's a company in the East Bay area who you can hire certified flaggers from. And did you get that information at all?
Yes, I did. I wasn't clear though whether you were gonna look into it. Did you cover it or-
Well, when you're at, so again, you were asking us for us to contact the company and get flaggers. Is that what we're saying? Oh, boy. And then we have to find a funding source for that.
We were just told
What-
last
that-
year
that
that,
We were just told, yes.
we were told last year that the city of Port Orford was going to have 2 people certified for them. So that's what we were,
By the way, who told you that?
the prior.
Oh,
Prior's been gone more than last
No,
week.
it's
since-
the-
No, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, she's the one, that's the one that you have 2
Okay,
city workers certified, because the 2 have to be certified on 101, and then the 2 on the back streets don't have to be.
correct. Okay, well, I think she might have misspoke.
So we can,
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't think that, no,
Certified flaggers, they have to be certified on a highway.
but they do that.
so the fire department guys,
I think they fall under a weird thing where they don't have to be certified if you're on, things like gas stations right around last year, and they didn't have me certified.
but when there's a wreck, they stand there with the sign. It says-
Right.
I think as a civilian, you can, I don't think you have to be certified. or
Brett.
anything like that.
Brett, it's all about big government.
Yeah, yeah.
When you say the word certified, it makes it sound super official. It's like a 2-hour class to be a certified flagger. We might even want to like post on Facebook. Do you have your flagger's card? Do you want to help out
I'm
with your
certified,
police?
but-
See, there's that one already.
So I-
You're on for long enough that you can do both.
Do we want to look into the police covering that maybe?
Well, we know we have a need and we
They might
know,
not be certified.
so yeah.
The police can do it. I had
They
the
can do
sheriff from Hurricanes come up last year because we were that desperate to cover that spot for some.
Wow.
Okay, the parade was not there.
Goal.
So we just have Hank W. take a couple people for the day and we go.
I think we're all certified.
We're all certified.
As of this meeting, John certified.
Okay.
Okay, so
So we'll work on that.
Well, are we gonna work on it, or are we telling her to work? Or I'm a little bit unclear. Are we gonna work on getting
John
flaggers?
could
or-
ask Hank that
Oh,
we-
okay.
I
Okay.
will definitely communicate with Chief Hobart about providing some folks to be, it's basically Highway 101 traffic control, right?
It's from hour to half.
Is that right?
It's
It all depends on how long the parade is, but yes, that's correct. From 11, that's when it starts.
Yeah, from 11 to 12:30.
All right. I'll ask Chief Hobart about that and see what he says, and see if he has any other ideas. But at this point, I think you should also call that number listed, Coast Flag.
Yeah, what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reached out, there was places that I really quit last year, I reached out to. It's just impossible to get someone to work on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
yeah, you're looking at $30 an hour probably minimum, and then you add the holiday, so.
So I think, we're in that same, when you say it's just as impossible for us to get someone to work on the 4th of July as it is for you. Okay, we'll effort on it,
So the one last thing I think was actually the paragraph in bold on page 44 for me, which was Gary's recommendation that we establish a memorandum of understanding between the Jubilee and the city. And I think that's a fantastic idea personally, so that we nail down
Yeah.
these things. once
Yeah,
and
that's
so
a
on.
good,
Yeah,
the goal,
Mhm.
so we don't have these questions moving forward.
Right.
That can be pretty complicated too.
Oh, yeah, no, it's gonna be one of those things right after the TLT ordinance.
Well, the other question I have though is, it sounds like in years past, it's just like happened with the Parks Commission. So with having this with the city, this agreement, though, sounds like a better thing, because then you don't have to, you know what, it won't have to be decided every year. It's like we would know, all these things would get worked out, and then you would know, and we would know, and I guess that's.
Does that behold us to anything? It's like, I don't know.
It kind of does.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's just a long, long conversation. That's probably.
Perhaps or perhaps not. When I look at this list of the, I see 10 items, that would basically be the MOU, and then we would just figure out who does what and where the money comes from. That, and then, you know, it gets included in the budget, and then the document's there and it gets executed going forward. I don't want to make it seem too soon or too easy, but if these are the 10 issues that come up every year on the Jubilee, they just get stuck in an MOU and you do this, you do that, and here's the money. But I mean, again, that would be where I would start and then see what happens after that.
And then you could make it, you know, you could make it 3 to 5 years, and so it could be, if, you know, if there's something that we feel like, oh, we're getting into something, renew it or change it or whatever.
The flagging is gonna be the most, I mean, obviously, that's the most difficult portion, unless a bunch of us get certified.
Yeah, if we get a couple people certified, then we can work on that.
John's gonna referee uniform stuff.
Yeah.
I got a whistle and some stripes.
You said you were certified. He told us he was certified.
Okay. I think we have a path forward. And we're all motivated to make this work.
Thank you so
Our number
much.
one job is to be fiscally responsible, but I think all of us are 100% motivated.
Mr. Mayor, you need to make your motion to carry your meeting down 2 hours.
It's only 8 o'clock.
Start at 5:30.
Oh,
Sounds good.
can I get a motion to extend the
Thank you,
meeting?
Jen.
It seemed like it was going so short.
So moved.
I make a motion to extend the meeting.
Great, okay. All right. Call for the vote. Brett?
No.
Counselor Webb?
Webb, no.
Counselor Blythe?
Yes.
Counselor Tidy?
Yes.
Counselor Burns?
Yes.
And Counselor
No.
So funny.
Oh, I didn't have to do that tiebreaker. Okay, so we get through this pretty fast. That probably took longer than the rest of me. But anyways, we are moving on to 8D, appointed budget officer.
I'll make a motion to appoint City Administrator Pro Tem John Huddle as the budget officer for the FY 2023-24 budget preparation.
Any discussion on that?
No.
All right, call for the vote. Counselor Tidy?
Yes.
Counselor Webb?
Webb, yes.
Counselor Blythe?
Yes.
Counselor Burns?
Yes.
Counselor Pogwitz?
Tim, yes.
Okay, we have dropped 8E, the water engineering.
Could there be a motion to continue that to the regularly scheduled meeting in July?
Move the table,
Oh, gotcha.
is that what you're looking for?
No, move
Yep.
to.
Just to continue to the regularly scheduled meeting in July.
Continue or table?
Well, technically, table means to postpone indefinitely, and then you have to have a motion to take something off the table. I hate the
okay.
fact that I know Robert Schul.
No, that's really good though.
But
I didn't know
actually, no, so it's a motion, all we're seeking is a motion to continue to the regular meeting in
Not gonna get it out of me.
July. Okay.
I-
Kidding.
I make a motion to continue this to the regular meeting in July, this consideration of this water engineer.
I'll second.
All right. No discussion. I'm assuming Counselor Tidy?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Pogwitz?
Yes.
Webb?
Webb, yes.
And Blythe?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, there was something I left out of my city administrator report, and this item reminds me. I asked some of the council members to bring citizen members who could be appointed to the budget committee. I heard that some of the council members were going to bring some people to be appointed to the budget committee. Do we have any of that here before us tonight? I'm just checking. I don't know if we do or not.
So I told you that I had, that's crazy. Do they need to come in and do anything?
I don't know that they have to be here, no. So I think the qualifications are that they only need to be an elector of the city, meaning a registered voter. And living in city limits. You know, I'm not super familiar with the city council, with our city's volunteer thing. I don't know.
Usually you
I've
have
never
to,
seen a form on any
I haven't.
public body that
But-
I've served.
but on but all the other committees have you fill out a form. I this one I filled out a
So
form.
the budget's a terrible thing, and it ropes people in sometimes for 3 years. I don't, is ours, is this one for 3 years?
4 year.
So I mean, we don't wanna have to make them do anything, you know, I mean, just come to work. It's tough enough, I think, is what I'm trying to say. What are our requirements for one community member per counselor? Is that?
Yes, and my experience is that, you know, each council member has a corresponding budget committee member to basically keep it a level playing field.
Budget, cool.
So in the past, all we've had to do was invite that amount of people. Because obviously, in many of the years, we've had maybe 1 or 2 citizens only show up. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we've not had it, like one person, each person brings somebody.
Oh, well, again, that's just where I think it was, you know, each council member, if they had particular budget things, they didn't want, you know, it had to do again with keeping a level playing field. So
I kind of thought it was some transparency.
however you want to call it, but and just for fairness, you know, that, like, for instance, should I go out and find, you know, if staff went and got a bunch of people on the budget committee?
I think that's a great idea.
No, but see, what could happen is, you know, I could get a bunch of people who wanted to vote, you know, to increase my budget line item,
Yeah.
et cetera. So I think the idea is, you know, budget are policy questions, and you guys are the policymakers, and that there should be an equal number of budget committee members to the city council members. That's all it really says, and mayor. And then, again, what I'm familiar with is that each council member would have a corresponding person, not so much that everyone knows how people are going to vote, but that like if, you know, if the mayor came in with 5 people, just using an example, and you guys, you know, he had his, it would be more or less his, but it wouldn't be one council.
Well, we ultimately, the power lies in the council.
Yes.
We'll make the decision following the meeting, and
Okay.
it would.
So it's not a big
have to go
concern
back
for you.
through and make
Good.
changes.
All right, so.
Council would do that. if
So
need be.
Okay, so good. So let's speed it up here. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm wasting time, but there are no budget committee appointments to make today. We're going to be noticing our first budget committee meeting to come up, and Councilmember Pogowitz says that we just bring people to the meeting that day and they become our budget committee. Is that
That's what Ann did.
okay?
We will obviously have to.
Yeah.
appoint them.
But you like to appoint them the day of the meeting. That's been the practice.
So.
Okay.
And that might be the practice, but you know, if I had a perfect world, we would appoint them at the same time we were appointing our budget officer.
Well, it's what I'm used to, but the legal requirement is that you start with the principle that there's an equal number of citizens to the council members. And then I did hear from legal counsel, Kudlak, that, and if you can't get the citizen members, then you just make a note of that and proceed or something.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think we've ever had that many. I think it's always been,
Okay.
as far as I know,
All right.
it's always been fewer. We just don't have that many people.
very good. Then I don't have any more to say on that.
Okay. That concludes new business. Number 9, continuing action items. I guess that would be 8E, the water engineering service got continued. And also, we're gonna, well, Jubilee's not. That. So number 10, moving into considerations, citizen consideration. Anyone online? Okay, staff considerations? Oh,
Yeah, I'll address, so let's just get that, go to the city manager, actually had a youth interest, and I came a few years ago.
Would you please come up and state your name and address?
320 16th Street. I approached the gal, Terry, a few years back about making a platform out in Garrison Lake for the youth, you know, like a slide and, you know, place to, you know, put your canoe in, paddle over to and tie it up and jump in the water. So you don't have to deal with the reed mess and the shoreline anywhere. It's just a, you know, kind of aquatic thing. She shot it down right away and didn't like the idea at all. And that was that. So anyways, there's a new county money now on a guy that does aquatic work for the county on the roof, safety guy. And so if you guys are up for it, I will give him a call and see if, because I think aquatic education is kind of short here in Port Orford. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have some youth aquatic education going on if we can put it together.
Thank you, Dan.
Is it okay if I give that guy a call and get an idea?
You need to get hold of Parks, probably.
But
That would be a Parks.
Yeah.
Garrison Lake Style Park. I think it, so in my experience, that would be something that would be delegated.
I think one of the things Terry said that would jot down would be all the insurances and impossible or whatever, you know, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but.
In her defense, recreational immunity was a
That was-
whole different animal.
Well, there was a few,
6 or 7 years
there was a
ago.
minute, Dave, when we were horrified because the blind jogger in Portland stepped in a pothole and was injured. And because of that pothole in the park, the city was being sued. And it put everything we've ever assumed in the state of
It
Oregon.
was a pothole? What was it?
Isn't that right?
Sidewalk
Sure. I mean, that was, in
Somebody got
a nutshell, it was a blind jogger on running on a path and stepped in a hole. And, you know, it really shook the core of the government because all of a sudden we didn't know if we could let people come in that door. And it may have been during that time, if it was 6 years ago.
Yeah, it was a bunch of years
It
ago.
was.
Terry was here, though, Terry was.
Yeah, so, I mean, I recall that pretty well. I was, you know, serving on 2 governments at the time, and it was a big, huge part of
I
what we
think the
were.
county has an interest with this guy, Luke, and getting some kind of, I mean, he's a salaried guy on salary. He's been up there at Port Orford for the port a number of times. He came up there with some rescue situation, someone got a call.
But he's gonna set up, he's helping the port set up a life jacket kiosk. And he's done a lot of good things. He's an employee, he's not a volunteer, but I think it'd be a great place to.
I ran into him and he told me he really would like us to do one down at the lake too. And I guess a proposal came in a couple of years ago to do a non-motorized upgrade for the 18th Street boat ramp. But he would like to put a life jacket kiosk at one of the places on the lake. So he's
The
interested.
12th Street ramp, such a better spot.
12th Street
Yeah.
ramp, there's been talks.
Didn't have wind.
Yes,
Which is a
yeah.
big factor. If you're running paddle boats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, anything, actually, that
Which
12th
one's
Street, you go
closer?
over and get the
One
wind
with the
shallow.
gazebo.
Oh, yeah.
By Travis Point. You know, they're getting that wind chill, that's the Irish story, you want to put a platform, that's what I would do.
He is circling back on that other Arizona Street project too, though. He is contacting those people, so that might come back to us.
So if he went to Parks Commission and did a presentation,
Yeah, I'll get in touch with you. Come, yeah, we come to this.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dave.
So there was a lady, South Coast Development, I believe, that was working with Main Street a few years back, that was gonna put a kayak,
Yeah,
launch.
It's still,
That's
that's
what that
something
was.
Parks is, that's something Silver Parks.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Okay. Staff considerations?
Just, I will be out of the office for a significant portion of tomorrow, primarily in the morning. I'll probably be back late in the afternoon.
Okay, council considerations. Well, if you guys aren't gonna do any, I'm not gonna do any either.
I would just say, I gotta say something, okay? I just say we're really grateful, John, that you stepped up to the plate, and I think on behalf of everybody, we're really glad that you're here, and I definitely look forward to working with you, and we're really grateful.
I'm having a lot of fun.
I do have other citizens consider
Finish up.
We asked what's wrong.
Well, we will try and make sure that you get that, we'll keep that momentum up for you. All right, so our next regularly scheduled meeting is for Thursday, May 18th, 2023.
No,
No.
that's today.
Excuse me, Mayor Pat Cox. I had one more citizens consideration before you guys finished up.
All right, go right ahead.
I was,
Can you say your name and address, please?
it's Roan Stetson, 1895 Washington Street. I was curious to where the complaint process was with Chief Hobart and the falsification of documents, because it has been 30 days since the complaint's been filed.
This is citizen consideration, so we're not really.
That's okay. I have a brief.
Does have to,
Mr. Stetson?
yes.
I have a brief response. I was backgrounded by Gary Milliman, and generally the city council doesn't get involved in those type of complaints. And it was decided that myself and legal counsel Kudlak would draft a response for you. So that's the current status. There's a response being drafted to be sent to you.
And what about the removal about both Hobart and Perry from the police force for their violation?
There's a response being drafted to be sent to you.
I appreciate that, but it is something that the council should be spoken to about, and it should be spoken about in public, because it does have to deal with the public and two officers that did break the law. So I understand that you have a drafted version coming, but what's going to happen with these two officers that broke the law and should not be employed anymore?
You'll get your answer in the draft that we're preparing to send to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizen considerations? We got the thank you from Ann. I'm gonna hold out till next month.
This is the next meeting is June 15th.
Yes, sorry, June 15th, 2023 is our next regularly scheduled meeting, but we do have some upcoming budget meetings that are gonna be in there too, so make sure and look out for those, because they'll be really exciting.
Actually, the 31st, we only have that meeting, 31st, the day before our meeting.
Yep, that's what.
We have our
Our
next,
budget meeting is on,
the 31st, 5:30.
Yeah. Okay.
all right, meeting adjourned.